Chapter 2574. 2574 Shocking. 2574 Shocking. The 5 gigantic swords were gradually devoured by the 6 paths of reincarnation. At the same time, the gigantic vortex could not withstand the sharpness of the great 5-element sword and dissipated as well. Paramitha Bridge. This time round, Zimo attacked first and released a supreme divine power. An endless stream of heaven and earth essence chi gathered beneath his feet and formed an ancient bridge that shone with a golden light in the blink of an eye. It extended continuously and smashed towards Yun Ting. The ancient bridge was filled with runes that condensed Zimo's Dharmic Tao and reached the other side. Wind Summoning. Countless sword chi intertwined and buzzed endlessly in Yun Ting's palms. He gathered his hands and the 2 balls of sword chi suddenly collided, producing a huge reaction, forming a storm that connected heaven and earth that swept towards the Paramitha Bridge. This was not a simple cyclone. Instead, the sharpness of the sword chi condensed from countless sword chi was enough to mince all living beings and destroy all life. Clang! Clang! After defending against the sword chi storm, the ancient bridge could not continue forward and the divine powers of both parties collided rapidly. The Dharmic Tao runes on the ancient bridge flickered. As for the sword chi storm, it swayed continuously and could collapse at any moment. Without waiting for any outcome from the 2 supreme divine powers, Yun Ting conjured hand seals with both hands once more and pointed at Zimo from afar, shouting softly, "Rain summoning." A heavy downpour poured down. Before the rain landed on his body, Zimo felt a faint pain on his head. He raised his head slightly and narrowed his gaze. Every single drop of rain was sharp as needles and swords. This was no ordinary rain. It was a terrifying sword rain. When released by Yun Ting, that divine power had long transformed and its power was at its limits. It was no exaggeration to say that every single drop of rain was enough to kill a grade 9 heaven immortal. The sword rain enveloped the entire vicinity of the gigantic stone battlefield. Against this terrifying divine power, one would not even have the chance to dodge. Many cultivators were shocked. Everyone had long guessed that this battle between the paragons would definitely be earth-shaking. However, they had not expected such terrifying attacks to be released the moment they exchanged blows. Neither of them held back at all. One after another, top-tier killing supreme divine powers were released by the 2 of them without any pauses or rest. The requirement for the strength of an essence spirit to release consecutive divine powers without any intervals was extremely high. If the essence spirit was not condensed enough and could not withstand the pressure, it would collapse on the spot. Zhong Feiyu smirked and thought to himself, "Fight, fight. The fiercer the fight between the 2 of you, the better. It's best if both parties end up in an internecine outcome." There were also many cultivators in the crowd with worried expressions. The moment the 2 sides exchanged blows, it became so intense that any single misstep would result in serious injuries or even death. On the gigantic stone battlefield. Against Yun Ting's heavenly encompassing sword rain, Zimo was fearless. He conjured hand seals with both hands and suddenly took a step forward. With that step, a gigantic green lotus flower appeared beneath his feet. The lotus flower blossomed and shone with a resplendent glow, enveloping Zimo within it in an incomparably divine manner. Each time Zimo took a step forward, a lotus flower would appear beneath his feet. The supreme divine power, lotus with every step. Every single step was a pure land. The green glow released by the lotus flowers collided repeatedly against the dense sword rain that descended from midair. This supreme divine power was rare in the 9 Firmament Immortal domain. Lotus with every step was a divine power of the Buddhist monasteries. Only those who were proficient in Buddhism could comprehend that supreme divine power. Even in the Buddhist monasteries, Lotus with every step was a top-tier divine power and was not disadvantaged against Yun Ting's terrifying sword rain. Zimo walked towards Yun Ting and conjured hand seals. Phew! Suddenly, 4 balls of flames of different colors appeared beside him. Under his guidance, the ball of flames gathered rapidly and formed an even larger fireball. It was like a blazing sun and emitted a shuddering heat. That's the secret skill. In the crowd of the great Gene Immortal Kingdom, a heaven immortal exclaimed. This person had once escaped death in Absolute Thunder City and witnessed the might of that flame secret skill with his own eyes, It could destroy the world. The Heaven Immortal seemed to have recalled a scene from the past and his body trembled uncontrollably. This secret skill was the one that burned Absolute Thunder City to ashes. Everyone was buried in the sea of flames and their essence spirits were destroyed. In the Yen-Yang Immortal Kingdom side, rank 5 of the Heaven ranking prediction, Lai Xian, was secretly speechless. He had faced that secret skill before and even how terrifying it was. Back then, he relied on that secret skill to comprehend the Great Sun Sutra to its limits. If he or anyone else was in that same position, they would not be able to hold on any longer at the moment. After the gigantic fireball in front of Su Zimo was formed, even the sword rain that fell from the skies evaporated instantly. Go! Su Zimo pushed the fireball in his hands in Yun Ting's direction. At the same time, a spirit consciousness flame entered the fireball. Pankati Dao Fire. Boom! When the fireball arrived before Yun Ting, it exploded instantly and the gigantic stone battlefield was surrounded by flames that surged into the skies. The temperature of the entire divine firmament hall was rising rapidly. Quadruple phenomenon sword formation. In the flames, Yun Ting shouted. Immediately after, 4 blinding sword chi gathered rapidly in the flames and transformed into 4 sacred beasts that guarded the surroundings. The azure dragon sacred beast caused rain to pour. The white tiger sacred beast had a torrential killing intent. The vermilion bird sacred beast was born from flames. The black tortoise sacred beast overturned rivers and seas. The 4 sacred beasts released completely different powers to suppress the Pankati Dao fire. Even so, the Pankati Dao fire could not be extinguished. Splash! The sound of a tsunami echoed from Yun Ting's body. Under the pressure of the powerful flames, Yun Ting could not defend against it and channeled his blood chi first. He was like an unsheathed sword with a sharp edge. Yun Ting's blood chi was way too strong. Every single drop of bloodline contained a destructive sword intent. Yun Ting merely stood on the spot motionlessly. The surging sword blood in his body coupled with the quadruple phenomenon sword formation could suppress the Pankati Dao fire completely. Although the Pankati Dao fire was not completely extinguished on the gigantic stone battlefield, it could no longer pose any threat to Yun Ting. Good, good, good. Su Zimo nodded slightly and praised repeatedly. There was no doubt about Yun Ting's strength. To think that he could defend against the Pankati Dao fire's attack single-handedly. Furthermore, Su Zimo could clearly sense that Yun Ting's sword blood was even more ferocious and powerful than thousands of years ago. You're not bad either. The fighting spirit in Yun Ting's eyes did not weaken at all and intensified. Coupled with the power of sword blood, a torrential killing intent and an unstoppable terrifying sword intent burst forth from his body, as though it wanted to tear through the world and sever the void. Yun Ting's aura was still rising. Against that sword intent, the world was about to overturn. Chapter 2575. 2575 Trump Cards. 2575 Trump Cards. When that sword intent burst forth, it was not only on the gigantic stone battlefield. Even the sword cultivators in the divine firmament hall felt their heart of the sword suffer a strong shock and impact. The swords of the sword cultivators began trembling with the intention of submission. The human-slaying sword art. In the world, only the human-slaying sword intent could release such a terrifying killing intent that could overturn the world. I can't defeat him. Lai Xian had a grim expression as he whispered. I can't even defend against that sword intent alone. Yun Ting is indeed the #1 of the heavenly world sword Dao. Even in the sword world, there might be no one who can match his talent. Brother Su has the heaven and earth slaying sword arts. He should be able to defend against it, right? Xie Qingqing was not confident either. I'm afraid the heaven and earth slaying sword arts alone won't be enough. Lai Xian shook his head gently. Mountain Sea Immortal Sex Qin Gu's expression changed as he said softly, the human-slaying sword art is Yun Ting's strongest technique. Seems like victory is about to be decided. Even the surrounding cultivators felt the unstoppable might of the human-slaying sword art. Nobody could imagine the sort of pressure Su Zimo was facing as he stood opposite Yun Ting. When the heaven's killing intent is released, the stars are shifted out of alignment. When the earth's killing intent is released, the dragon snake shall rise. Without hesitation, Su Zimo released the heaven and earth slaying sword arts. The dragon and snake attacked together, forming a heaven and earth killing combination. When the human's killing intent is released, heaven and earth shall topple. Yun Ting's voice sounded. However, his figure had already vanished, and in his place was a long sword that was about to tear the world apart. The three great sword arts were all at the limits of killing. However, the human slaying sword art contained an unyielding will that rose against the tide and fought against heaven and earth. In terms of intent, the human slaying sword art suppressed the heaven and earth slaying sword arts firmly. Boom! The human slaying sword art collided against the heaven and earth slaying sword arts, creating a deafening bang as sword chi surged in all directions endlessly. Instantly, the entire gigantic stone battlefield was filled with extremely sharp sword chi. Any grade 9 heaven immortal that entered would be minced to death by the sword chi. After a momentary stalemate, the dragon snake formed by the heaven and earth slaying swords collapsed and died. As for the human slaying sword that Yun Ting had transformed into, it stood upright in the world, emitting a torrential killing intent and endless sharpness. The human slaying sword continued slashing down. Su Zimo's expression was unchanged and he was extremely calm. He wrote a word rapidly in midair with his fingertip. Kill. Supreme Divine Power, Killing Word Art. Under normal circumstances, that supreme divine power could not defend against the human slaying sword art. However, at that moment, the killing intent on the gigantic stone battlefield had already reached its peak with the release of the heaven, earth and human slaying sword arts. Making use of the surrounding killing intent, Su Zimo released the killing word art and pushed the power of the supreme divine power to its limits instantly. Not only did the killing word art hide the killing intent of the heaven and earth slaying sword arts, it even absorbed the killing intent of the human slaying sword art. The gigantic kill word turned incomparably scarlet in midair, as though it was stained with blood. Even book Immortal Yun Zhu, who specialized in divine powers, had never seen such a terrifying killing word art. How smart! Even Immortal King Qing Yang, who was in the middle of the hall, could not help but praise when he saw that. If this killing word art was released in advance, it would definitely not be able to reach its current power. Although it seemed like the difference was merely in its time of release, the power produced was completely different. This was a manifestation of one's combat talent. Boom! The human slaying sword and killing word art collided without relenting. Even with the might of the human slaying sword art, it could not dispel the killing word art. Ha 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 ha! Suddenly, Yun Ting's laughter sounded in the gigantic stone battlefield. Great, great! Yun Ting shouted, Su Zimo, you're really something. To think that you would think of such a method to dispel my human slaying sword art. The moment he said that, the human slaying sword and killing word art collapsed. In the vast killing intent, Yun Ting's figure flashed and he charged toward Su Zimo. As for Su Zimo, he stomped on the ground and soared into the air, charging towards Yun Ting as well. Both of them chose to engage in melee combat at almost the same time. In my impression, Yun Ting seems to have other trump cards that he has yet to use. Furthermore, he's the successor of the Extreme and Heart Sword Darius. Could he be holding back? Su Zimo should have some trump cards left as well. For example, there's that divine power that can reduce one's lifespan he used in the Azura battlefield back then to kill the #1 Heaven Execution Guard instantly. What do you guys know? Another cultivator sneered. How many divine powers and secret skills did the two of them release just now? Furthermore, every single divine power and secret skill were top-tier killing techniques and takes a huge toll on the essence spirit. The reason why the two of them did not continue to release their trump cards is because the power of their essence spirits has depleted and they are extremely weak. Pausing for a moment, he continued, the two of them can't even release essence spirit secret skills anymore, let alone divine powers and secret skills. Zhong Feiyu's judgment was similar to this person. If that was not the case, Su Zimo and Yun Ting would not have changed from a fight between divine powers and secret skills to melee combat. What a pity. Zhong Feiyu looked slightly disappointed. Ever since he was scared off by Su Zimo in the Azura battlefield back then, he had obtained a Dharmic treasure that could protect his essence spirit from his master. He was prepared to use it to deal with Su Zimo's reverse scale secret skill. From the looks of it, there should be no need for that. On the battlefield. In the blink of an eye, both parties had already closed in. Yun Ting conjured his finger swords with both hands and sword blood coiled around his body, emitting a sharp aura as he stabbed towards Su Zimo's glabella. At the same time, a cold aura rose in his eyes and his pupils constricted. Thereafter, 2 cold sword lights burst forth and the surrounding temperature dipped. Visual technique, Ice Soul Sword Eye. Enveloped by the 2 sword lights, Su Zimo's bloodline was about to freeze. If he could channel his blood chi, the cold chi would not be a threat to the Green Lotus true body. But now, Su Zimo could only fight with visual techniques. Illumination Eye. Without hesitation, a blinding beam of light burst forth from Su Zimo's right eye and collided against the 2 incoming sword lights. His left eye was still shrouded by a mysterious power of darkness and he could not release the nether glow eye. As for Yun Ting's Ice Soul Sword Eye, it was extremely powerful. Back in the Emperor's tomb, it suppressed the Illumination Eye. Today, the visual techniques of both parties clashed once more. Illumination Eye was still unable to defend against the Ice Soul Sword Eye. Although the searing heat of Illumination Eye neutralized the sword intent in the Ice Soul Sword Eye, it could not defend against the coldness of the visual technique. Instantly, Su Zimo's body was covered by a layer of frost and his movements were restricted. At that moment, Yun Ting's finger sword had already closed in and was less than a foot away from his glabella. A smile appeared on Yun Ting's face. The slight suppression of his visual technique allowed him to seize the opening and secure victory with a single strike. Right then, Su Zimo suddenly opened his mouth and let out a roar that shocked all living beings. Instantly, the world went silent. Chapter 2576. 2576 Complete Suppression. 2576 Complete Suppression. That roar contained a supreme will and a powerful might that even caused the cultivators present to shudder. The Dragon Roar secret skill was released. When Yun Ting saw Su Zimo open his mouth, he realized what was about to happen and hurriedly released his sound domain technique. Slash! Yun Ting shouted and a long sword formed from sound appeared in midair. His voice converged into a sword. However, the moment the sword was formed, it was shattered by Su Zimo's Dragon Roar secret skill. Cracks appeared on the sword and it dissipated rapidly. Yun Ting was superior to Su Zimo in terms of visual technique. However, he was no match for Su Zimo in terms of sound domain secret skills. This Dragon Roar secret skill had long surpassed the original sound domain secret skill of the dragon race. It was fused with many Dharmic Daos, including the sound of thunder, the roar of the dragon phoenix and azure dragon. Even true dragons could not defend against Su Zimo's Dragon Roar secret skill. Of course, the Dragon Roar secret skill could not hurt Yun Ting either. Yun Ting's physique was strong and his sword blood was ferocious. Even without releasing his sound sword, the Dragon Roar secret skill alone could not injure him. However, the Dragon Roar secret skill still caused a momentary pause for Yun Ting's actions. That momentary pause was more than enough for Su Zimo. Me. He took half a step back and opened up the space slightly, chanting Sanskrit. He conjured a Dharmic seal of the Buddhist monasteries rapidly and smashed it towards Yun Ting's finger sword. Bang! The fist and finger collided. Yun Ting's finger sword could even penetrate perfect heaven-grade Dharmic treasures. Only top connate heaven-grade Dharmic treasures could take it head-on. What was even more frightening was that Yun Ting's finger sword contained an extremely sharp and terrifying power of his sword blood. However, when Yun Ting's finger stabbed Su Zimo's fist, it was as though it had struck an immovable and incomparably tough mountain peak. Yun Ting's attack that was accumulated with strength suffered a setback. He felt a sharp pain on his finger sword, as though it was about to be snapped. Pest! Yun Ting took a deep breath and a look of shock flashed through his eyes. His finger sword could break everything. What body of flesh and blood could defend against it? Back in the Emperor's tomb, after he released his blood chi, Su Zimo had to avoid it and suffered minor injuries continuously. Back then, Su Zimo could only barely fight him with his powerful regeneration capabilities. To think that Su Zimo would be able to take him head-on in melee combat today with just his physique and even gain a slight advantage. Things were long different from the past. Yun Ting had grown continuously over the years, forging a sword body and condensing sword blood. As for Su Zimo's Green Lotus true body, Its potential was even greater and had already grown to grade 11, almost at its peak. Furthermore, the Green Lotus True Body cultivated the body tempering section of the Jade Pure Jade Manual, which was from the 3 Pure Ones Jade Manual and was a taboo mystic classic. There were also many powerful cultivation techniques such as the Divine Elephant Breathing Technique and Void Thunder Manual. Even without using his blood chi, the physique of the Green Lotus True Body was unprecedented. Furthermore, when Su Zimo released the Six-Tusk Divine Strength, his physique strength increased exponentially once more. Earlier on, he made use of the Dragon Roar secret skill to turn the tides. Thereafter, he released Sanskrit of the Buddhist monasteries along with a supreme Dharmic seal, the Great Vajra Wheel Seal. The Great Vajra Wheel Seal was unshakable and indestructible. In just a short exchange, Su Zimo had already released many powerful trump cards to seize the upper hand. Yun Ting felt a sharp pain from his finger sword and sword blood surged. Instantly, the pain was resolved. However, the moment his mind wavered, Su Zimo caught it right away. Immediately after, he spoke again and released another Sanskrit sound. Hum. At the same time, Su Zimo's hands conjured hand seals once more and released the Great Mount Meru seal, suppressing Yun Ting's head fiercely. Bang! Boom! Right in front of many cultivators, an incomparably majestic mountain peak was formed in midair. It was even taller and more majestic than Divine Firmament Palace with a torrential aura. Great Mount Meru. When Immortal King Qing Yang saw the mountain peak, he narrowed his eyes slightly and his heart skipped a beat. This lad's attainments in Buddhism have already reached such an extent. To think that he can conjure the sacred mountain of the pure land of bliss. Immortal King Qing Yang was extremely interested in Su Zimo's identity and background. In fact, he even suspected if Su Zimo was from the pure land of bliss. Gasps could be heard from the surroundings of the Divine Firmament Hall as well. Many cultivators felt suffocated when they saw such a majestic mountain descending with a shocking might. How could any living being in the world withstand such a mountain? Lai Xian had a conflicted expression when he saw the phantom of Great Mount Meru. Back in the Azura battlefield, he was suppressed by Su Zimo's 2 Buddhist Dharmic seals and was defeated right away. At that time, Su Zimo had just fought a fierce battle and was only a grade 7 heaven immortal. Right now, this Great Mount Meru was even stronger than the one he faced on the Azura battlefield. With the augmentation of the Prajna Nirvana Sutra, the power of any Buddhist Dharmic Tao would increase exponentially. Great Mount Meru seemed to have enveloped the entire Divine Firmament Hall. Yun Ting, who was on the gigantic stone battlefield, had nowhere to hide and could only endure it head-on. Bang! Boom! Countless rocks rolled down and a large shadow shrouded down, covering the skies with a terrifying might. Boom! Yun Ting raised one hand and the sword blood in his body buzzed. It was as though countless sharp swords were piercing out of his body to defend against the descending Great Mount Meru. Beneath Great Mount Meru, there was only a seemingly tiny figure with a single arm that towered into the skies. His body was as straight as a sword and he did not move at all. Prince Yun Ting. The many cultivators of the Zixuan Immortal Kingdom were emotional and their blood boiled as they shouted. This was Yun Ting. Even Great Mount Meru could not suppress him or conceal his sharpness. If Yun Ting's sword blood was allowed to continue attacking, Great Mount Meru would be destroyed before long. However, Su Zimo did not give Yun Ting any breathing room and attacked once more. His fist was like a seal, his palm was like a saber, his finger was like a sword and his elbow was like a spear. Every single part of his body, including his fist, palm, finger, claw, elbow, knee and shoulder, could release unparalleled attacks. As for Yun Ting, his melee combat strength was extremely terrifying as well. Sword blood flowed through his body. His sword Tao had already fused into every single inch of his flesh and bones and was cultivated to every single corner of his body. Even his brows and every single hair on his head and body were killing weapons. Against Su Zimo's attacks, Yun Ting supported Great Mount Meru with one hand and fought Su Zimo with the other in an intense battle. The surrounding cultivators watched fixedly without daring to blink. Melee combat was extremely dangerous and victory could be decided instantly. No one dared to be distracted. Initially, both parties could still fight back and forth. However, as time passed by, Yun Ting was gradually disadvantaged and his counterattacks decreased. He fell into a passive defensive situation and was completely suppressed by Su Zimo. Apart from the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the Great Wilderness, Su Zimo's melee combat skills were fused with the fighting techniques of the dragon race and were honed through countless life and death battles. They were all killing techniques. In reality, Yun Ting's offensive skills were not weak. In fact, it was comparable to Su Zimo. However, he was fighting with one hand after all. It was already rare for him to last till now. Chapter 2577 2577 Immortal Vanquishing Sword 2577 Immortal Vanquishing Sword. Yun Ting is going to lose. Xueqi murmured softly. Many cultivators could tell that Yun Ting would definitely lose if the situation was allowed to develop. Not necessarily. Lai Xian shook his head gently. Yun Ting's methods are definitely not limited to this. Lai Xian had a conflicted expression. As a reincarnated perfected immortal, he had the chance to cultivate once more. To think that he would encounter peerless monster incarnates like Yun Ting and Su Zimo in this generation. Back in the Azura battlefield, he was defeated by Su Zimo's 2 Buddhist Dharmic seals. As for Yun Ting, he supported Great Mount Meru with one hand and could even fight Su Zimo with the other until now. The difference between him and Yun Ting was obvious. On the gigantic stone battlefield, Yun Ting also realized that the situation was grim. Sword light surged in his eyes as he channeled the blood chi in his body to its limits, breaking through the limit of tsunami blood. Suddenly, a gigantic blood-colored sword appeared behind Yun Ting, emitting an extremely sharp killing intent. That blood-colored sword was even more terrifying than the human-slaying sword intent. Back in the Emperor's tomb, when Yun Ting released his bloodline phenomenon, Su Zimo already felt a strong sense of danger. That blood-colored sword could definitely threaten him. It was the same today. Yun Ting no longer held back and released his bloodline phenomenon. Xing! The blood-colored sword tore through the air and sliced Great Mount Meru into 2 from the middle. Even the majestic and thick Great Mount Meru could not defend against the sharpness of the blood-colored sword. Su Zimo narrowed his eyes slightly and his hairs stood on end. Even after thousands of years, the blood-colored sword still sent chills down his spine, as though a calamity was about to descend the next moment. Back in the Emperor's tomb, Su Zimo resolved Yun Ting's bloodline phenomenon by releasing Essence Spirit secret skills in succession to deal a strong blow to Yun Ting's Essence Spirit. He only managed to defeat Yun Ting because he did not allow the latter to condense his bloodline phenomenon. In today's fight for rank 1 of the heaven ranking, Su Zimo had no intention of using his Essence Spirit secret skills. It was clear that Yun Ting had the same thoughts. The two of them had never mentioned this matter before. However, this was a unique chemistry between them. Furthermore, back in the Emperor's tomb, Yun Ting had also said that he had yet to master the bloodline phenomenon completely and could not condense it right away. But now, Yun Ting clearly had control of the blood-colored sword. Su Zimo. Right then, Yun Ting's voice sounded in Su Zimo's mind. Do you know what happens when the heaven, earth and human slaying sword arts become one? I think it will become a peerless divine power. Su Zimo said. That's right. Yun Ting sent a voice transmission with his spirit consciousness and continued, when the 3 great sword arts are combined, they will become a peerless divine power, the Immortal Vanquishing Sword. You! At that point, Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat as he glared at the blood-colored sword behind Yun Ting, seemingly enlightened. Yun Ting nodded. You're not wrong. My bloodline phenomenon is the Immortal Vanquishing Sword. Back in the Emperor's tomb, I only cultivated the embryonic form of the Immortal Vanquishing Sword and had yet to master it completely. Over the years, I've deduced and perfected the Immortal Vanquishing Sword myself. Although it hasn't reached the actual level of a peerless divine power, I've already touched the threshold of a peerless divine power. Amazing! Su Zimo could not help but praise internally. Indeed, Yun Ting's talent in the sword Dao was unparalleled. Without the complete set of the heaven, earth and human-slaying sword arts, he could cultivate the embryonic form of the Immortal Vanquishing Sword art with just a single human-slaying sword art. Furthermore, he completed the Immortal Vanquishing Sword through his own deduction over the years. Only without the heaven and earth slaying arts, Yun Ting's immortal vanquishing sword was still not perfect at the end of the day, and was not at the level of a peerless divine power. As long as it was not a peerless divine power, Su Zimo still stood a chance. The moment Yun Ting summoned the immortal vanquishing sword bloodline phenomenon, all the cultivators present felt their hearts skip a beat. Many cultivators even felt chills run down their spines, as though a sharp blade was hanging on their necks and could slice them off at any moment. Immortal vanquishing sword. Immortal King Qingyong murmured softly with a hint of fear in his eyes. On the gigantic stone battlefield. Carrying the immortal vanquishing sword on his back, Yun Ting reversed the momentum of the situation instantly and strode toward Su Zimo, shouting, "Su Zimo, come on! Let me see what else you have." Su Zimo had a calm expression as he conjured hand seals repeatedly with both hands. Suddenly, a vast star region appeared above his head. The star region could roughly be subdivided into 7 smaller regions. Only one of them was dim, but 6 of them were already lit up. Millions of stars shone with resplendent starlight and scattered down, gushing into Su Zimo's apertures. The Mystic Spirit Big Dipper Diagram. Su Zimo could not use his bloodline right in front of everyone, let alone the bloodline phenomenon of his creation Green Lotus. The only thing he could release was the Mystic Spirit Big Dipper Diagram. Su Zimo had already cultivated this secret skill to greater mastery and lit up 6 star regions. With the help of the power of millions of stars, its might was comparable to a bloodline phenomenon once released. When he saw that, Yun Ting shook his head gently. "That's not enough." Yun Ting willed and the immortal vanquishing sword behind him slashed gently. Shing! In the firmaments, the vast starry skies were split into 2 by the immortal vanquishing sword. Instantly, countless stars fell and the Mystic Spirit Big Dipper Diagram was destroyed by the immortal vanquishing sword. Star-plucking hand. Su Zimo made use of the Mystic Spirit Big Dipper Diagram's boundless star region to release a supreme divine power. Under the envelopment of the Mystic Spirit Big Dipper Diagram, Star-plucking hand condensed endless starlight and its power increased exponentially. Too weak. Yun Ting shook his head once more and the immortal vanquishing sword behind him moved, slicing the star-plucking hand into 2 instantly. Everywhere the sharpness of the immortal vanquishing sword passed, it slashed and destroyed everything. Su Zimo, you can admit defeat now. Yun Ting had his hands behind his back and a haughty expression. The immortal vanquishing sword hovered in front of him and could slash down at any moment. Su Zimo raised his brow slightly without saying anything. Yun Ting said, "I know that you might feel indignant or dissatisfied, but this is the reality. It's not embarrassing to lose to the immortal vanquishing sword. Of course, even if I win today, I won't look down on you. In the same cultivation realm, you're the only one I value. It's because of you that I became even stronger. If you want to challenge me in the future, you're welcome to do so at any time. I hope that you won't fall too far behind me after entering the perfected 1 rel." Relying on his bloodline phenomenon, the immortal vanquishing sword, Yun Ting stood on the gigantic stone battlefield and raised his head slightly, speaking with assurance like a victor. However, those words sounded logical to the cultivators present. It was not embarrassing to lose to Yun Ting. Qin Gu and Zhong Feiyu were both smiling. Although Yun Ting and Su Zimo did not end up in an internecine outcome, both of them had already released most of their trump cards. Once this battle was over, their chance would arrive. Suddenly, Su Zimo laughed and looked at Yun Ting, who was confident of victory. "Who gave you the confidence to think that you can suppress me with just an incomplete bloodline phenomenon?" Chapter 2578. 2578 Impermanence of Life and Death. 2578 Impermanence of Life and Death. Humph. Yun Ting was a little displeased when he saw that Su Zimo refused to admit defeat. He was giving Su Zimo a way out on account of his sister. To think that Su Zimo would be so tactless. Since that was the case, he was going to teach Su Zimo a lesson instead. Slash. Yun Ting's spirit consciousness moved and he pointed in Su Zimo's direction. The immortal vanquishing sword behind him transformed into a blood beam and slashed forward. Su Zimo's expression was calm. He did not dodge or avoid and his hands shifted continuously. Everything is impermanent. This is the law of arising and passing away. Su Zimo murmured a few obscure sutras and released an incomparably divine Dharmic seal that was filled with Buddhist light. It was one of the 3 secret skills of the taboo mystic classic, Prajna Nirvana Sutra, Impermanence seal. Everything in the world was impermanent and cycled through life, residency, dissonance and destruction. Be it the divine powers, secret skills or bloodline phenomenon released by Yun Ting, they were categorized under everything. Everything was impermanent. The moment the Impermanence seal collided with Yun Ting's bloodline phenomenon, the life and death of the immortal vanquishing sword could be decided with a single thought. The Impermanence seal came from a true taboo mystic classic and was one of the 3 major Dharmic seals of the Buddhist monasteries. There were also records of the remaining 2 Dharmic seals of the Buddhist monasteries, the Prajna Nirvana Sutra. However, given Su Zimo's current cultivation realm and comprehension of Buddhism, he could not comprehend it even with the Bodhi seed. The remaining 2 Dharmic seals were of a higher level, and he could not come into contact with them yet. Phew! The immortal vanquishing sword slashed down and collided with the Impermanence seal. Under countless gazes, the blood-colored sword dissipated instantly and disappeared before long. The entire divine firmament hall was in an uproar. Yun Ting's bloodline phenomenon had just destroyed 2 of Su Zimo's divine powers and secret skills with such dominance and ease. To think that it would be resolved by a mysterious Dharmic seal. Yun Zhu's expression changed in deep thought. She knew that Su Zimo had once obtained the Hell Suppression tripod and cultivated the Prajna Nirvana Sutra. She also knew that there were 3 major Dharmic seals of the Buddhist monasteries in the taboo mystic classic. This should be the Impermanence seal, as expected of a taboo mystic classic. Yun Zhu nodded to herself. If Yun Ting's bloodline phenomenon had reached the level of an actual peerless divine power, it would be difficult for the Impermanence seal to dispel it. Unfortunately, Yun Ting had not seen the heaven and earth slaying sword arts. That bloodline phenomenon merely touched the threshold of a peerless divine power, but it was still not an actual peerless divine power at the end of the day. On the gigantic stone battlefield, Yun Ting frowned. Back in the fight for the earth ranking, he had seen Su Zimo release this Dharmic seal of the Buddhist monasteries to neutralize Feng Yin's divine power. However, he did not take it to heart. To think that this Dharmic seal of the Buddhist monasteries could neutralize his bloodline phenomenon. Yun Ting was enraged. He had just said a lot of things because he thought that victory was within his grasp. To think that the situation would change in the blink of an eye. And he felt his face heat up. Good. Yun Ting harumphed coldly and grit his teeth. Since you refuse to admit defeat, I won't hold back either. I'll let you witness my true trump card. Buzz! Yun Ting's spirit consciousness moved and a long sword that flashed with lightning appeared in his palm. The sword was surrounded by lightning but it could not conceal the sharpness it emitted. It was extremely sharp and as it buzzed and trembled, Su Zimo felt a slight pain on his face. The name of this sword is Divine Firmament. It has followed me for many years and has never tasted defeat. Yun Ting named his personal sword Divine Firmament. It was enough to see his ambition and boldness. Divine Firmament. Back then, I accidentally entered an ancient ruin and barged into a sea of lightning. I obtained a divine stone and smelted it for 49 years before obtaining this sword. Su Zimo focused his gaze. There were a few faint lightning burn marks on the Divine Firmament sword that were extremely similar to the sentient Dharmic treasures used by perfected immortal experts. Under normal circumstances, only when cultivators advance to the Perfected One realm and attract the Perfected One heavenly tribulation to refine their Dharmic treasures, their Dharmic treasures could nurture sentience and intelligence, transforming into sentient Dharmic treasures. There would also be a few lightning burn marks on the sentient Dharmic treasures. If a 9 of 9 heavenly tribulation was attracted and the Dharmic treasure did not shatter even after experiencing it, it would be called a 9 tribulation spirit treasure, also known as a pure yang spirit treasure. Yun Ting's sword was nurtured in the sea of lightning to begin with. When the Divine Firmament sword attained greater mastery, it carried burn marks and possessed spirit consciousness that was comparable to sentient Dharmic treasures. That was also the reason why the Green Lotus true body could feel a sharpness and a faint pain before he even made contact with the Divine Firmament sword. The Divine Firmament sword was indeed a rare divine weapon, and even the Green Lotus true body could not take it head-on with his body. However, Su Zimo had a calm expression. He had many Dharmic treasures on him as well, and they were definitely not weaker than the divine Firmament sword. You should understand that my greatest reliance is the sword Dao. Yun Ting wielded the divine Firmament sword, and his finger sword landed gently on the sword's spine. Rubbing it slowly, he said proudly, "Initially, I did not want to summon the divine Firmament sword. However, since you and I have fought to this point, fine. I'll let you have a taste of the sharpness of the divine Firmament sword." The moment he said that, Yun Ting flicked his sword gently. Clang! Clang! The divine Firmament sword buzzed and trembled. Sword chi intensified and its body shone with crackling electric arcs. Instantly, it vanished from the spot and stabbed towards Su Zimo. The speed of the divine Firmament sword was so fast that it was difficult to see with the naked eye. Apart from killing, the speed of the sword Dao was also top tier among the many Dharmic Daras. On the divine Firmament sword, there was the speed of the sword Dao as well as the augmentation of the thunder Dao. With the might of thunder, it became even faster. The moment the sword hum sounded, the divine Firmament sword had already arrived before Su Zimo. Yun Ting's figure seemed to have vanished. Even most of the cultivators watching could not catch sight of Yun Ting, let alone Su Zimo who was standing opposite him. Yun Ting had already fused perfectly with the divine Firmament sword. He followed the sword and became one with it. Even spirit consciousnesses would have difficulty detecting Yun Ting, let alone the naked eye. Yun Ting's sword Dao was indeed terrifying. If it was anyone else, they would not have been able to defend against that sword strike. However, Su Zimo's reaction was extremely fast. He blocked his five senses and retracted his spirit consciousness immediately, merely relying on his spirit perception to sense where the danger was. Clang! Suddenly, a green glow flew out from Su Zimo's glabella. An auspicious jade flew out and did not clash head-on with the sharpness of the divine Firmament sword. Instead, it struck the spine of the divine Firmament sword with extreme precision, creating a crisp sound. The divine Firmament sword shuddered. Under normal circumstances, the Trinity auspicious jade could disperse the essence chi on divine weapons, Dharmic treasures and spirit consciousnesses. Any Dharmic treasure that collided with it would be brushed away. As for Yun Ting, he was fused with the divine Firmament sword. Coupled with the lightning surrounding the divine Firmament sword, the collision of the Trinity auspicious jade did not knock the divine Firmament sword down. Even so, the divine Firmament sword paused slightly in midair and revealed an opening. Chapter 2579. 2579 Surrounded and Beaten. 2579 Surrounded and Beaten. Su Zimo's gaze intensified. Unknowingly, a horsetail whip had already appeared in his hands and he moved his wrist gently. With a whoosh, 3,000 silver-white threads tore through the air and surged towards the divine Firmament sword and Yun Ting with a terrifying might, as though they had transformed into a galaxy. Yun Ting frowned slightly. He could naturally tell that Su Zimo's horsetail whip was not easy to deal with. The 3,000 threads were not much of a threat to him. However, if he were to fall into the galaxy conjured by the 3,000 silver threads, he would definitely sink deeper and his movement technique would be restricted, preventing him from unleashing the true might of the sword Dao. In melee combat, it was extremely important to seize the initiative. Yun Ting did not want to fall into a passive position. At that thought, Yun Ting swayed slightly and suddenly turned blurry. His figure faded as though he had escaped into the unknown void and was no longer in this world. It was the top movement technique secret skill of the upper world, Void Cruising Sword. The reason why this movement technique was so powerful was because Void Cruising Sword had already come into contact with the Dharmic Dao of space. One could cruise through the void to avoid danger and break free from their predicaments. The galaxy formed by the 3,000 silver threads washed past Yun Ting's direction. However, Yun Ting and the divine Firmament sword strangely vanished. It was not teleportation. Instead, he vanished into thin air on the battlefield and escaped into the void. That move was extremely stunning. When the 3,000 threads were exhausted and the galaxy was weak, Yun Ting would suddenly appear with the divine Firmament sword and retaliate against Su Zimo. Right then, a strange look flashed through Su Zimo's eyes. In his mind, the mysterious Ling Long Zugzwang surfaced one after another. Chessboards flashed before his eyes one by one before finally stopping at the 8th Ling Long Zugzwang. The key to resolving the 8th Ling Long Zugzwang was the Dharmic Tao of space. Right at that moment, Su Zimo made use of the spirit consonance art and together with the power of the martial Tao prime body, resolved the 8th Ling Long Zugzwang. Although he could not control that power yet, the method to break out of the situation had long been imprinted in his mind. Right in front of everyone, Yun Ting had already made use of the sword Tao to escape into the void and disappear. However, under Su Zimo's gaze, the gigantic stone battlefield where the two of them were located became a chessboard with a Ling Long Zugzwang. Yun Ting's location was clearly visible and there was nowhere to hide. Yun Ting entered the void and was ready to retaliate. However, in the void, he suddenly realized that Su Zimo was staring at him fixedly. Those eyes seemed to be able to penetrate the void and see where he was. How was that possible? Yun Ting felt uncomfortable under Su Zimo's gaze. He used his movement technique once more and escaped into another part of the void. However, before he could steady himself, Su Zimo's gaze shifted over as well, still staring at him with a strange expression and a fake smile. What's going on? Yun Ting felt chills run down his spine from Su Zimo's gaze. He released his movement technique consecutively and escaped into the void. However, Su Zimo's gaze followed him like a shadow, fixed on his back. Instantly, Yun Ting felt like a monkey that was being teased as he jumped around. Suddenly, a silver spear suddenly tore through the void and arrived before him instantly, piercing towards the back of his head. It was only at that moment that Yun Ting truly believed that Su Zimo could see through his tracks. He slashed in reverse and collided against the incoming spear. Clang! The sword and spear collided and metal clashed with sparks flying. The spear was shattered into silver-white threads by his sword. The so-called spear was formed from the 3,000 threads of the primordial unity horsetail whip. The offensive methods of the primordial unity horsetail whip were treacherous and varied. It could be tough or gentle, fusing yin and yang. When it was tough, the threads would form a spear that was indestructible. When it was gentle, the threads would be like water and were endlessly flexible. Although the incoming spear was dispersed, Yun Ting was also knocked out of the void by the ferocious power contained in the spear and landed on the gigantic stone battlefield once more. The fight between the two of them seemed long. However, to the many cultivators watching, it only took a few breaths. Suddenly, Yun Ting vanished. Thereafter, Su Zimo glared at the void of the gigantic stone battlefield and took a few glances. Suddenly, he waved his horsetail whip and forced Yun Ting out of the unknown void. Before Yun Ting could stand still, the Trinity Auspicious Jade descended from the skies. Yun Ting raised his sword hurriedly to defend. Clang! Although the Trinity Auspicious Jade was sent flying, Yun Ting's body trembled slightly as well. The power of thunder on the divine firmament sword dissipated significantly as well and condensed again before long. Splash! Immediately after, the 3,000 threads transformed into a galaxy with raging tides that surged and drowned Yun Ting instantly. Break! Yun Ting's voice sounded in the galaxy. Immediately after, an extremely sharp beam surged into the skies and split the galaxy into two. Swoosh! Yun Ting reappeared and stood on the galaxy with a torrential aura. The Trinity Auspicious Jade smashed down once more. Clang! The sharpness of the thunder on the divine firmament sword was dispersed by the Trinity Auspicious Jade the moment they started converging. Even if Yun Ting possessed an unmatched sword Tao, he could not release it. The moment his sword Tao was released, it was shattered by the Trinity Auspicious Jade and the primordial unity horsetail whip. 3 heads 6 arms. Immediately after, Su Zimo released his supreme divine power. Wielding the primordial unity horsetail whip in one hand, Trinity Auspicious Jade in another and the 7 tails phoenix feather fan in the last one, he charged towards Yun Ting. Clang! 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 Su Zimo's body spun continuously as the primordial unity horsetail whip, Trinity Auspicious Jade and 7 tails phoenix feather fan took turns attacking Yun Ting. Not only that, Su Zimo's remaining 3 arms that were free attacked Yun Ting as well in the form of punches, slaps and finger thrusts. Yun Ting's sword Tao was already shattered by the primordial unity horsetail whip and Trinity Auspicious Jade. Right now, he even had to face the 7 tails phoenix feather fan and Su Zimo's 3 arms in melee combat. There was an ancient saying that 2 fists were no match for 4 hands. Right now, Yun Ting was facing 6 arms. In that series of attacks, Su Zimo's fists, divine weapons and Dharmic treasures filled his entire peripheral vision. He could not even catch his breath. For Yun Ting, 3 heads 6 arms was not a divine power that was difficult to cultivate. However, he had never cultivated it before and was disdainful towards it. In his eyes, the sword in his hands was enough to deal with all strong foes and kill all living beings. He had not expected to encounter Su Zimo's unreasonable fighting style today. Su Zimo did not use any special moves at all. He merely smashed towards Yun Ting fiercely with the Primordial Unity Horsetail Whip and Trinity Auspicious Jade, and the latter was completely stunned. In the blink of an eye, the two of them exchanged hundreds of blows. Yun Ting was drenched in sweat and was forced to retreat in defeat in shock and anger. He was suppressed by Su Zimo and did not even have the chance to curse. The scene before him was equivalent to 3 Su Zimos attacking Yun Ting at the same time. No matter how strong Yun Ting's sword technique was, he could not withstand it. As for Su Zimo, he could not take down Yun Ting after attacking for a long time. When he saw that Yun Ting was still gritting his teeth and holding on, he could not help but smirk with a strange smile. Suddenly, a jade manual flew out from his glabella. Immediately after, the jade manual transformed into a figure at the side. Pure Jade Manual, Primeval Body. Fuck! When Yun Ting saw that, his vision and he almost fainted from anger. Chapter 2580. 2580 Taking Advantage of Others? 2580 Taking Advantage of Others. Yun Ting was merely supported by a single sword, but he was assaulted relentlessly by Su Zimo's 3 heads 6 arms. Gradually, he could not withstand it and was struggling. To think that Su Zimo would summon another primeval body. This time round, it was equivalent to Yun Ting facing 4 Su Zimos. That's way too much. Yun Ting's face darkened as he cursed internally. At that moment, there was only a single thought in his mind. After today, he would definitely cultivate the supreme divine power, 3 heads 6 arms. When the primeval body was condensed, it took on the form of the taboo dragon phoenix and attacked Yun Ting as well together with Su Zimo's 3 heads 6 arms. The pressure on Yun Ting increased significantly. Although there were no divine weapons in the hands of the taboo dragon phoenix, it was the primeval body condensed by the Pure Jade Manual after all and was extremely strong. Any kick or punch would cause considerable damage to Yun Ting. However, he gritted his teeth and refused to admit defeat. The toll on Su Zimo must be immense for him to release such ferocious attacks using 3 heads 6 arms. He would not be able to sustain it for long. That was the saying that one would definitely decline at their peak. Relying on his strong physique and strong sword blood, Yun Ting grit his teeth and endured. He was looking forward to launching a counterattack once Su Zimo's strength was depleted. However, as time passed by, Yun Ting felt increasingly despaired. After an entire 5 minutes, Su Zimo's attacks did not weaken. Instead, they turned increasingly ferocious and his aura intensified as his strength grew. Yun Ting was merely defending passively, but he felt like he could not hold on any longer. His head spun and his vision darkened. There was no way Yun Ting knew that the strongest thing about the Green Lotus True Body was its endurance capabilities. He could even hold out for dozens of minutes, let alone just 5. Isn't that way too tragic? After all, it's 1 against 4. 2 fists are no match for 8 hands. It's not Yun Ting's fault. Why does it feel like a junior is being disciplined? The 1,000 cultivators in the Divine Firmament Hall were dumbfounded when they saw that. Nobody expected this to be the situation at the end of the battle. Rank 1 on the Heaven ranking prediction, Yun Ting, was cornered by Su Zimo in the gigantic stone battlefield and beaten badly without any chance to retaliate. In the direction of the Zhixian Immortal Kingdom, Yun Zhu suddenly burst into laughter. When Mo Qing saw that Yun Ting was bound to lose, she was worried about Yun Zhu and looked over from time to time. "Sister, are you all right?" At that moment, when she saw Yun Zhu smiling, as though she was in a good mood, she was puzzled and asked worriedly. "Yeah, I'm very well." Yun Zhu smiled and nodded. Pausing for a moment, she said, "It's good for Yun Ting to lose as well. It can be considered a lesson for him to know that there's always someone better out there." "Yes." Mo Qing nodded slightly as well. Actually, it's quite an unfair victory for junior brother Su. He has 3 heads, 6 arms and a clone. It's pretty much like bullying. Those words were naturally just pleasantries to console Yun Zhu. However, many cultivators of the Zhixian Immortal Kingdom nodded repeatedly when they heard that. Some cultivators had indignant expressions and were unwilling to accept the fact that Prince Yunting was defeated, so they said, "That's right. If it's a one-on-one fight, Prince Yunting will definitely be able to defeat Su Zimo." Yun Zhu said indifferently, "Be it 3 heads, 6 arms or the primeval body, they are the trump cards of his. Naturally, he can release them as he pleases." If Yunting was capable enough, he could have summoned hundreds of clones as well. When they heard that, although everyone from the Zhixian Immortal Kingdom was unwilling to accept it, they did not dare to complain anymore. Yun Zhu looked at the 2 people on the gigantic stone battlefield with a relaxed expression. The reason why she was so happy was not because the outcome of the battle between the 2 people on the gigantic stone battlefield was about to be decided. She could accept the outcome of this battle between the 2 paragons no matter who won. Her only worry was that the 2 of them would be injured or even die because of this. It was only now that she was relieved. That was because she realized that the 2 of them had held back in this battle and did not fight to the death. The 2 of them had an extremely tacit understanding and did not use their essence spirit secret skills. Furthermore, be it Su Zimo or Yunting, both of them exercised restraint. Otherwise, Yunting would have lost a long time ago. Unlike the cultivators of Heaven and Earth Academy and Zhixian Immortal Kingdom, Qin Gu of Mountain Sea Immortal Sect and Zhong Feiyu of Flying Immortal Sect were secretly delighted. The longer the 2 of them fought, the more energy they would expend and the more advantageous it would be for them. On the gigantic stone battlefield. "No more, no more." In the corner, Yunting, who had been beaten up by Su Zimo for 5 minutes, finally could not hold on any longer and shouted while panting. When Su Zimo heard Yunting speak, he did not continue pounding and retreated in a flash. Yunting was drenched in sweat. He did not care how many people were watching and collapsed to the ground, panting heavily. He did not have any injuries on his body. However, his body ached and he was exhausted from Su Zimo's 3 heads, 6 arms and primeval body. Yunting took out a handful of immortal pills from his storage bag and swallowed them all, trying his best to absorb and refine them. The primeval body could not withstand it either and gradually dissipated. The pure jade manual transformed into a streak of green light and returned to Su Zimo's consciousness. 3 heads, 6 arms dissipated as well. In reality, Su Zimo could no longer maintain his supreme divine power. Without the 6-tusked divine strength and 3 heads, 6 heads arms, his strength would be much weaker as well. However, Yunting truly could not hold on any longer. Furthermore, he could tell that if Su Zimo was willing to attack with his full strength, he would not have been able to last till now. On the gigantic stone battlefield. One of them wore green robes and had a rosy complexion, looking calm and composed. The other sat limply on the ground, sweating and panting. Victory was decided. He won. In the Yan-Yang Immortal Kingdom, Xie Qingqing clenched his fists and said excitedly, "Brother Su will become rank 1 of the heaven ranking this time round." He was truly happy for Su Zimo. Lai Xian had a calm expression as he shook his head gently. Su Zimo did defeat Yunting, but he might not be rank 1 of the heaven ranking. "Why do you say that?" Xie Qingqing asked with a frown. Lai Xian's gaze swept past the eager Qin Gu and Zhong Feiyu not far away. The 2 of them over there will definitely not give up. They are still intending to challenge Brother Su? Xie Qingqing's heart sank. Brother Su has expended too much energy in this battle and has used up all his trump cards. What's up with the 2 of them? They're trying to take advantage of the situation? Lai Xian was extremely calm as he analyzed. The fight between Su Zimo and Yunting was a fight that went beyond the rules to begin with. Although Divine Firmament Palace acknowledged it, they did not express their support explicitly. According to the rules, the rank 1 of the heaven ranking has to engage in multiple ranking battles and convince the masses. If Qin Gu and Zhong Feiyu insist on this, Divine Firmament Palace won't be able to say anything. We can't abolish the heaven ranking rules of many years just because of Su Zimo and Yunting. Xie Qingqing frowned and asked, "Is there any way to resolve it?" Lai Xian shook his head and sighed gently. Although there's an outcome for the battle between the two of them, others will benefit from it. Sigh. Benefit from it. Right then, Xialing suddenly spoke with a deep meaning. I'm afraid it's not going to be easy for them to gain this benefit. Chapter 2581. 2581 Challenge. 2581 Challenge. Mountain Sea Immortal Sect. Qin Gu looked at the two people on the gigantic stone battlefield and narrowed his eyes slightly. What are you doing? Just as Qin Gu was about to stand up, Chess Immortal Junyu seemed to have sensed something and suddenly spoke. Junyu did not turn back and merely glanced sideways. As though she could read Qin Gu's mind, she asked indifferently, "You want to take advantage of them?" Her tone was calm, but there was a hint of sternness. Qin Gu hesitated slightly. If it was an ordinary heaven immortal, they would most likely not dare to have any other thoughts in the face of the Chess Immortal's question. However, Qin Gu was a reincarnated perfected immortal after all. Back when he reincarnated, Chess Immortal Junyu had yet to rise. From that perspective, Junyu was merely a junior to him. Qin Gu pondered for a moment before saying slowly, "You're wrong. According to the rules of the heaven ranking, I'm qualified to challenge them to begin with. This can't be considered as taking advantage of them. It was their choice to fight till this point. It has nothing to do with me. The reason why I want to be rank 1 of the heaven ranking is not only for myself, but also for the glory of the sect." Qin Gu's words were extremely powerful as well. Not only did he resolve Junyu's question, he even rose a level and correlated the position as rank 1 of the heaven ranking with the glory of the sect. Chess Immortal Junyu was someone from Mountain Sea Immortal Sect after all. Qin Gu was certain that even if she wanted to stop him, she could not say anything more. A mocking look flashed through Junyu's eyes, as though she had already read Qin Gu's mind. "Up to you. Good luck." At the same time, on the side of Flying Immortal Sect, Zhong Feiyu glared at Su Zimo, who was on the gigantic stone battlefield with a murderous aura, prepared to get up. "Meng Yao, I'll definitely kill this lad and take revenge for you." Relying on his status as a reincarnated perfected immortal, Zhong Feiyu called Meng Yao by her name without the use of titles such as senior sister. "Thank you for your kind intentions, Brother Zhong." Meng Yao nodded slightly and reminded, however, "Brother Zhong, you have to be careful. Don't be careless. That Su Zimo might still have something up his sleeves." "Don't worry." Zhong Feiyu smirked sinisterly. "I'm long prepared." On the gigantic stone battlefield, Yun Ting took a few breaths and swallowed many immortal pills. His breathing gradually stabilized as he looked at Su Zimo with a conflicted expression. "You won this time round, but I'm indignant." "Oh." Su Zimo could tell that Yun Ting was implying something and could not help but raise his brow. Just as Yun Ting was about to speak, two people stood out from the crowd on both sides below. It was Qin Gu of Mountain Sea Immortal Sect and Zhong Feiyu of Flying Immortal Sect. The two of them glared at them with burning gazes and torrential auras, filled with fighting spirit. Yun Ting's expression darkened. Suddenly, he stood up and looked at Qin Gu and Zhong Feiyu, asking slowly, "What are the two of you trying to do?" "Nothing much," Qin Gu said in a deep voice. "There are naturally rules for the heaven ranking. The position of rank 1 isn't something that can be decided just by the outcome of the two of you." "That's right." Zhong Feiyu glared at Su Zimo with evil intentions and laughed evilly. "If you want to be rank 1 of the heaven ranking, you'll have to ask my flying fish sword first." "Bullshit." Yun Ting had just been enraged by Su Zimo and had nowhere to vent it. When he saw how shameless Zhong Feiyu and Qin Gu were, he could not help but curse. He spat at the two of them. "Under normal circumstances, even if the two of you attack together, you won't be able to defend against my divine Firmament sword." "Humph." Zhong Feiyu sneered. "Rules are of paramount importance for the fight for the heaven ranking. You can't blame others for your reckless behavior. If you want to be rank 1 of the heaven ranking, you'll have to convince the masses. What has the outcome of the fight between the two of you got to do with us?" Pausing for a moment, Zhong Feiyu surveyed his surroundings and declared, "We're not the only ones. Among the paragons present, there are many who don't agree as well." In reality, everyone could tell that Su Zimo was truly the rank 1 of the heaven ranking since he defeated Yun Ting. However, many cultivators did not mind escalating the situation. Now that Qin Gu and Zhong Feiyu stood out, another commotion broke out. Immediately, someone echoed and shouted that they were indignant. Instantly, the crowd chimed in with a deafening commotion. On the gigantic stone battlefield, Yun Ting's expression darkened and his eyes were filled with killing intent. On the other hand, Su Zimo had a calm expression and remained silent. Ha 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 ha. Zhong Feiyu burst into laughter and suppressed the surrounding commotion. Su Zimo, you saw it too, right? That's the thought of all the cultivators. If you want to be rank 1 of the heaven ranking, you have to convince the masses. Qin Gu nodded as well. He looked at Immortal King Qin Yang and said, according to the rules of the heaven ranking, the two of us will definitely go against Su Zimo and Yun Ting given our rankings. It's well within reason. Yes. Immortal King Qin Yang said in a deep voice, indeed. How shameless. On the side of Heaven and Earth Academy, many Academy disciples were indignant. Mo Qing frowned slightly as well and said softly with a worried expression, should we get junior brother Su to retreat and give up on fighting for rank 1 of the heaven ranking? Yes. Yang Ruoxu nodded. That's indeed safer. In fact, in everyone's hearts, brother Su is already rank 1 of the heaven ranking. There's no need for him to fight for that empty title. Yun Zhu had a calm expression as she smiled gently. She held Mo Qing's small hand gently and consoled her. Don't worry, the two of them will sort it out themselves. On the gigantic stone battlefield. Turning around, Yun Ting looked at Su Zimo at the side and suddenly asked, how are you? Can you still fight? Of course. Su Zimo nodded. All right. Yun Ting's eyes lit up. Let's each choose an opponent and see who wins first. Actually, he still had some trump cards that he had yet to use in the fight earlier on. Those trump cards were all powerful killing moves. Once released, even he could not control them and it would result in either death or serious injuries. Yun Ting wanted to defeat Su Zimo. However, in the depths of his heart, he did not want to kill Su Zimo. Furthermore, he could vaguely sense that Su Zimo and his sister were very close. Even on account of Yun Zhu, he was unwilling to harm Su Zimo's life. That was the reason why he said that he was indignant although Su Zimo won this time round. And now, both of them could choose an opponent without holding back and could fight freely. From that perspective, the fight between the two of them was not over. Yun Ting wanted to use this method to display his powerful trump cards to Su Zimo so that he could compete with the latter. Sure. Naturally, Su Zimo could read Yun Ting's mind and agreed without hesitation. Take your pick first. I'm fine with anything. On the battlefield, the conversation between the two of them was not hidden either. The 1,000 cultivators in the Divine Firmament Hall, Qin Gu and Zhong Feiyu included, heard everything clearly. The cultivators were dumbfounded. What were the two of them doing? Instead of being worried, they were choosing their opponents. This was no longer looking down on Qin Gu and Zhong Feiyu, this was complete disregard. The two reincarnated perfected immortals, Qin Gu and Zhong Feiyu, were like fish on a chopping board in the conversation between Su Zimo and Yun Ting. The two butchers were merely discussing who could kill faster. Chapter 2582. 2582 Extreme Sword Douge. 2582 Extreme Sword Dao. Yun Ting pondered for a moment. I'll leave Zhong Feiyu to you. I'll settle Qin Gu. Zhong Feiyu was from Flying Immortal sect. Thanks to Zither Immortal Meng Yao, things between him and Su Zimo were irreconcilable. Furthermore, the two of them had offended one another in the Azura battlefield. Yun Ting's choice conveniently allowed Su Zimo a chance to settle the grudges between him and Zhong Feiyu. As for Qin Gu of Mountain Sea Immortal sect, he did not have any deep feud with Su Zimo. The reason why he stood out this time round was because he wanted to challenge the rank 1 of the heaven ranking. However, if Qin Gu could not even defeat Yun Ting, he was even less qualified to challenge Su Zimo. Su Zimo and Yun Ting discussed and chose their opponents on the gigantic stone battlefield as though no one was around. Qin Gu and Zhong Feiyu had ugly expressions. This was a complete humiliation for them. Cut the crap. Zhong Feiyu retracted his smile and glared at Su Zimo coldly with a dark expression. Hurry up if you want to fight. Are you trying to buy time? The reason why Zhong Feiyu dared to challenge Su Zimo was because Su Zimo and Yun Ting had expended a lot of energy in the battle and had used up all their trump cards. If Su Zimo was given enough time to recover to half of his peak condition, Zhong Feiyu would not dare to stand out, let alone if he was in his peak condition. Since that's the case, let the two fights take place at the same time. Immortal King Qingyong stood up and waved his robes. Another gigantic rock rose rapidly in the middle of the hall, forming a battlefield. Yun Ting glanced at Su Zimo and raised his head slightly with a provocative expression. Thereafter, he arrived at the second battlefield in a flash. Qin Gu entered the second battlefield later on as well. Zhong Feiyu arrived at the first battlefield to confront Su Zimo. The top 4 paragons and monster incarnates of the heaven ranking prediction were about to fight, and their rankings would be decided soon. Extreme! Yun Ting bit the tip of his tongue gently and spat out a mouthful of essence blood, scattering it on the divine firmament sword. Lightning flashed and sword chi intensified. Yun Ting had just fought a huge battle and had expended a lot of energy. However, at that moment, he was invigorated and his aura rose rapidly. He actually recovered rapidly and was even stronger than when he fought Su Zimo. That was the extreme sword Dao. In exchange for burning his essence blood, he could release his immense potential in a short period of time and unleash the speed, killing power and everything else about the sword Dao to its limits. When he fought Su Zimo, Yun Ting did not use this trump card. That was because once released, the extreme sword Dao could only advance and not retreat. Unless the other party was defeated and bled, his attacks would not stop until his essence blood was burned up. There was no way out for the extreme sword Dao. Even if they had to die together, he had to press forward. Yun Ting did not want to fight Su Zimo to that extent. However, he had no such reservations against Qin Gu. Swoosh! Yun Ting followed the sword and vanished. He was connected to the bloodline of the divine firmament sword and became one completely. The divine firmament sword arrived before Qin Gu and launched a flurry of attacks. Qin Gu had a grim expression and did not dare to be careless. He was extremely nervous and summoned his destiny Dharmic treasure, holding an ancient bell in his hands to defend with all his might. Clang! 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 The sound of metal clashing echoed like rain when the divine firmament sword struck the ancient bell. Right in front of everyone, Yun Ting's figure had already vanished completely, leaving only a sharp divine firmament sword that flashed with lightning in midair, attacking Qin Gu fiercely. Qin Gu did not retaliate the entire time. It was not that he did not want to, but he did not have the chance at all. Yun Ting's attacks were way too ferocious. The killing power and speed of the sword Dao had already reached their limits and he did not have any chance to catch his breath or retaliate. If he wanted to retaliate, he would definitely be severely injured by the divine firmament sword and might even die on the spot. That was the might of the extreme sword Dao. Of course, Qin Gu did not give up. As a reincarnated perfected immortal, he was experienced and knowledgeable. Naturally, he could tell that the extreme sword Dao was not without weaknesses. It came at the cost of burning one's essence blood. As long as he could defend and wait for Yun Ting's essence blood to burn up, Yun Ting would definitely be the one defeated and die without him even retaliating. On the first battlefield, Zhong Feiyu summoned his flying fish sword and glared at Su Zimo. Grinning, he released his essence spirit secret skill without hesitation. His judgment was simple. Su Zimo had released so many divine powers and secret skills in the battle with Yun Ting. The essence spirit must have expended a lot of energy. He had just witnessed Su Zimo's melee combat strength personally, and even Yun Ting was not his match. He did not want to be dragged into melee combat and add unnecessary variables. He wanted to find Su Zimo's weakness and kill him with a single strike. Zhong Feiyu's spirit consciousness gathered and transformed into a sword chi that burst forth. Su Zimo had a calm expression and did not dodge or avoid. In fact, he did not even fight head-on with his essence spirit secret skill. The sword chi entered Su Zimo's glabella and was immediately shattered by the green lotus sword conjured by the green lotus seeds. The green lotus essence spirit was completely unharmed. Immediately after, a dragon scale flew out from Su Zimo's glabella. Essence Spirit Secret Skill, Reverse Scale. This scene was extremely similar to the fight between the two of them in the Azura battlefield. This time round, Zhong Feiyu was long prepared. When he saw Su Zimo summon the reverse scale, he did not panic and released a second essence spirit secret skill as well. His spirit consciousness transformed into a white-silver fish that charged towards the reverse scale. The two spirit consciousnesses collided. Zhong Feiyu's expression changed starkly. An almost destructive power suddenly descended in his consciousness and acted on his essence spirit. Thankfully, he was prepared and obtained a defensive essence spirit Dharmic treasure from his master. Even so, his essence spirit was shaken. Furthermore, cracks appeared on his essence spirit Dharmic treasure and its glow dimmed. In a single exchange of essence spirit secret skills, the essence spirit Dharmic treasure was completely crippled. In the Azura battlefield, Su Zimo was only a grade 7 heaven immortal at that time. Right now, his cultivation realm was at the grade 8 heaven immortal realm. Even without the 6-tusk divine strength, his essence spirit realm far surpassed the grade 9 heaven immortal realm. With the augmentation of the 6-tusk divine strength, the power of his essence spirit had already touched the threshold of the perfected one realm. Such a situation was rare throughout history. There was an unimaginable and insurmountable gap between the heaven essence realm and the perfected one realm. At the peak of the heaven essence realm, one had to undergo the perfected one heavenly tribulation to have a chance of condensing their Tao fruit. Once they advanced to the perfected one realm, their strength would increase tremendously. As for Su Zimo's essence spirit, he used the taboo mystic classic, the Prajna Nirvana Sutra, as his foundation. He fused the Green Lotus and Dragon Phoenix essence spirits together, and possessed the innate divine power of the 6-tusk divine strength to make up for the huge difference between the two major cultivation realms. Su Zimo guessed that once he cultivated to become a grade 9 heaven immortal, there was a chance that his essence spirit realm would cross the heaven essence realm and reach the strength of a perfected one convergence realm. One could imagine the lethality of the reverse scale released with the strength of a spirit consciousness as such. If Zhong Feiyu did not have that defensive essence spirit Dharmic treasure, he would have been killed by a single move from the reverse scale. Zhong Feiyu's heart skipped a beat as his face turned pale with a sense of trepidation. How was that possible? Even after fighting with Yun Ting for so long, this person could still release an essence spirit secret skill. Furthermore, it was an essence spirit secret skill with such terrifying power. Chapter 2583. 2583 3 Killing Techniques. 2583 3 Killing Techniques. In reality, Zhong Feiyu and many cultivators had far underestimated Su Zimo and Yun Ting. Indeed, their essence spirits had expended a lot of energy after the exchange. However, it was not at the point where they could not release their essence spirit secret skills, divine powers or secret skills. The two of them did not use any essence spirit secret skills in their fight. That was a tacit understanding between the two of them. A deep fear flashed through the depths of Zhong Feiyu's eyes as he felt a sense of trepidation and wanted to retreat. He realized that he could not read Su Zimo at all. Now that his essence spirit was shaken, although he was not injured, it was inconvenient for him to continue fighting. Unfortunately, although Zhong Feiyu wanted to leave, Su Zimo had no intention of letting him off. Before Zhong Feiyu could snap out of his stupor and make up his mind, Su Zimo's attack descended once more. Supreme Divine Power, Fleeting Moment. Without even testing the waters, he released his strongest killing move. Most cultivators had only heard that Su Zimo specialized in a divine power secret skill that reduced one's lifespan. However, no one knew how powerful that divine power secret skill was. In fact, not many people knew that even the Shadowless Sword, one of the 3 great sword immortals, died indirectly to Su Zimo's supreme divine power. Zhong Feiyu did not dare to be careless and put aside the thought of escaping for the time being. He hurriedly condensed his spirit consciousness and released another supreme divine power to fight head-on. The moment the two supreme divine powers collided, Zhong Feiyu heard a strange drumbeat that was dull and filled with an aura of death. Zhong Feiyu's expression changed. He could clearly sense his lifespan decreasing rapidly. This is bad. Zhong Feiyu was shocked and released various divine powers, secret skills and his bloodline phenomenon to defend against that strange power. If it was just fleeting moment, it would naturally not be a threat to Zhong Feiyu. However, fleeting moment was mixed with the Dharmic Tao of the Twilight Drum. Even though the two Dharmic Daos had yet to synthesize perfectly, this supreme divine power had already touched the threshold of peerless divine powers. It was no exaggeration to say that the current fleeting moment was an existence comparable to Yun Ting's condensed bloodline phenomenon, the Immortal Vanquishing sword. Finally, after releasing many divine powers and secret skills in succession, the crisis of lifespan reduction gradually dissipated. At that moment, Zhong Feiyu felt a sensation of weakness from his essence spirit. After clashing head-on with the reverse scale, his essence spirit suffered some shocks. And now, he released so many divine powers and secret skills in a short period of time forcefully. That was a huge toll on his essence spirit. Even his bloodline phenomenon could not withstand it and flickered. Right then, a warning flashed in his heart. Without hesitation, Zhong Feiyu wanted to make use of his movement technique to escape from the spot. Roar! Suddenly, an earth-shaking tiger roar burst forth and reverberated through the world. It was deafening and filled with endless might, causing one's heart to tremble. Immediately after, a gigantic white tiger with a strong malevolent aura appeared in midair to the west of Zhong Feiyu. The tiger was covered in white fur without any impurities. Its bell-like eyes were incomparably bloodshot and emitted a chilling killing intent. White tiger sacred beast. Although it was only a phantom formed from malevolent chi, the cultivators present still felt their bloodlines being suppressed. It was a pressure that came from the depths of their soul and was unstoppable. Zhong Feiyu's bloodline phenomenon was already on the verge of collapse to begin with. However, after the white tiger sacred beast descended, his bloodline phenomenon dissipated instantly. The white tiger's eyes were bloodshot. The moment it appeared, it locked onto Zhong Feiyu, who was not far away, and lunged over with its mouth wide open. The roar of the white tiger sacred beast caused Zhong Feiyu to shudder, and he looked dazed for a moment. That momentary daze was enough for him to die in the white tiger's mouth. The white tiger chomped down on Zhong Feiyu in a single mouthful, and its sharp teeth left rows of bloodied holes on his body. Fresh blood gushed out. When the malevolent chi entered his body, Zhong Feiyu's life force was severed. Before his essence spirit could escape, it was completely destroyed by the malevolent chi in the white tiger's mouth and died. Pest! When the cultivators saw that, they gasped in shock. Although the entire process sounded long, it happened within a few breaths. After the essence spirit fight, Su Zimo released a supreme divine power followed by that terrifying killing secret skill. A murderous white tiger appeared from the west. Accompanied by a roar, it devoured Zhong Feiyu and bit him to death. The white tiger stood in the west with a corpse in its mouth. It exuded a torrential malevolent chi and was like a god of killing that ruled over the world, causing all living beings to prostrate. This was the unparalleled killing secret skill recorded on the Hell Suppression tripod, White Tiger Corpse Collection. Back in the Azura battlefield, Su Zimo was able to kill Song Su in a single move after releasing White Tiger Corpse Collection because he made use of the power of the malevolent Blood Lake. Now that Su Zimo's cultivation was at the Grade 8 Heaven Immortal realm, the power of this secret skill was even more ferocious. Furthermore, the impact and exhaustion caused by the reverse scale and fleeting moment earlier on made Zhong Feiyu completely defenseless against White Tiger Corpse Collection. The entire process seemed simple. However, in reality, the reverse scale, fleeting moment and White Tiger Corpse Collection were all Su Zimo's strongest killing techniques. When he fought with Yun Ting earlier on, he was afraid of harming the latter's life and did not release it. Now that all three killing moves were thrown at Zhong Feiyu, it would be a miracle if Zhong Feiyu could survive. What happened? Zhong Feiyu was killed instantly? That secret skill should be the one that Su Zimo used to kill Song Su instantly in the Azura battlefield. How savage! Rank 4 of the Heaven ranking prediction, Zhong Feiyu, could not survive more than 3 moves against Su Zimo. Not only that, don't forget, Su Zimo has just fought a fierce battle with Yun Ting and has expended a lot of energy. After a momentary silence, a commotion broke out in the Divine Firmament Hall. The crowd was in an uproar. Many cultivators thought that Zhong Feiyu was at his peak and Su Zimo was weak after using up all his trump cards. Both parties would definitely be embroiled in a bitter battle. However, none of them expected that Zhong Feiyu would die on the spot without a chance to escape within a few breaths. He won! Many cultivators of Heaven and Earth Academy stood up one after another and cheered excitedly. Mo Qing, Yang Ruoxu and the others heaved a sigh of relief as well. Yun Zhu was not surprised by this scene and had a faint smile on her face. The cultivators of Flying Immortal sect had ugly expressions as though they had lost their parents. Zither Immortal Meng Yao's expression was even colder as she pursed her lips in silence. She had not expected that Zhong Feiyu would be killed by Su Zimo in 3 moves. If she had known earlier, she would not have sent Zhong Feiyu up to die. Her plan had failed completely. This scholar who looked frail but was actually like a ferocious tiger had grown way too quickly. In fact, she was starting to feel flustered. Gazing at the green-robed cultivator with his hands behind his back on the gigantic stone battlefield, Meng Yao realized that she might not have a chance to get rid of this person in the future. Chapter 2584. 2584 Heart Sword. 2584 Heart Sword. Zhong Feiyu's death caused a huge shock to the remaining cultivators of the Heaven Ranking Prediction. Even Zhong Feiyu, rank 4 of the Heaven Ranking Prediction, could not defend against Su Zimo's attacks. Some of the cultivators who were initially restless now had to reconsider their actions. They did not know if they could return alive if they went forth to challenge him. On the second battlefield. Sensing that the combat on Su Zimo's side had ended, Yun Ting's attacks became even fiercer and faster. Qin Gu's face was pale as he grit his teeth and defended with all his might. Victory was about to be decided in this battle. If Yun Ting could not take down Qin Gu within a short period of time, even if he won in the end, he would have expended a lot of essence blood. That would cause immense damage to himself and might even affect his future cultivation. Clang, clang, clang. The sound of metal clashing was as dense as rain. In everyone's eyes, even the divine Firmament sword seemed to have vanished, let alone Yun Ting. The only thing left around Qin Gu was a sword beam that was surrounded by lightning that circled and galloped. Heart Sword. Suddenly, Yun Ting's voice sounded once more. That was his other trump card. The Heart Sword was invisible and once released, it would target the other party's Dao Heart. This was a killing technique targeted at the Dao Heart. With his Dao Heart destroyed, Qin Gu would definitely lose this battle. If he could not repair his Dao Heart, Qin Gu might have no hope of advancing to the perfected One Realm for the rest of his life. The strength of that secret skill was closely related to the strength of one's Dao Heart. If one's Dao Heart was not strong enough and the other party's Dao Heart was indestructible without any flaws, they would suffer a backlash and their Dao Heart would be damaged if they released the Heart Sword targeted at their opponent. The Heart Sword secret skill was a double-edged sword. If one's Dao Heart was not strong enough and was not as strong as the other party, they would suffer the consequences of their actions. The reason why Yun Ting was able to cultivate the Heart Sword secret skill successfully was all thanks to the crushing defeat Su Zimo gave him in the Emperor's tomb thousands of years ago. That defeat woke Yun Ting up from a dream. Instead of crushing him, that defeat made his Dao Heart even stronger and sharper, allowing him to eventually comprehend the Heart Sword Dao. In the battle with Su Zimo earlier on, Yun Ting had actually considered using the Heart Sword secret skill as well. However, he hesitated for a moment and did not summon it. He was worried that if this secret skill was released, Su Zimo's Dao Heart would be damaged and he would lose a powerful opponent. At that moment, Yun Ting did not know yet. His choice of giving up had indirectly saved himself. If he had released his Heart Sword secret skill on Su Zimo, the battle between the two of them would have ended a long time ago. On the second battlefield. Against the invisible Heart Sword, Qin Gu did not have any divine powers or secret skills that could defend against it. He could only defend with his Dao Heart and hold his ground. As long as he was one with his Dao Heart and there were no flaws in it, Yun Ting's Heart Sword would return fruitless. To be fair, Qin Gu's Dao Heart was indeed strong enough. Even for perfected immortal experts, the conditions were extremely stringent if they wanted to be reborn. It was 1 in a million. The first requirement for the reincarnation of a perfected immortal was for his soul to be intact. If the essence spirit was severely injured and his soul was destroyed, he would not be able to be reborn no matter how many supreme experts protected him. Before the soul entered reincarnation, an immortal king-level expert had to release a Dharmic art to protect it and leave an imprint on it. Everything in the early stages was still within the control of humans. Once one entered reincarnation, everything would be decided by fate. In the 6 paths of reincarnation, anything could happen and there was a high chance that the imprint left on the soul would be washed away. Once the imprint disappeared, it was uncertain if he could reincarnate successfully or would end up as any random living being. Even after his reincarnation, the former perfected immortal would become a new living being that had nothing to do with his previous life. Without an imprint, experts of his previous life would naturally not be able to guide him back and keep him in the sect. It could be said that all the perfected immortals who could reincarnate successfully were lucky people blessed by the heavens. Furthermore, Xueqi had reincarnated and cultivated for 2 lifetimes. There was naturally no need to elaborate on how strong his Tao heart was. However, at the same time, his 2 lifetimes of cultivation also meant that he had failed in his previous life. In this battle, he did not dare to challenge Yunting when the latter was in his peak condition. He only wanted to take advantage while Yunting was down. That was also proof of his failure in this generation. It could be said that the moment he stood out to challenge Yunting, his Tao heart had already left a fatal flaw. He lost. Chess Immortal Junyu looked at Xueqi on the battlefield and shook her head gently, merely saying 2 words. Back then, she had the intention to stop Xueqi because she could see through the flaw in his Tao heart. Unfortunately, Xueqi was stubborn and was forced to this point. On the second battlefield, Xueqi stood on the spot with widened eyes and sweat pouring down his forehead. His expression changed and flickered. Suddenly, Xueqi opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of blood. Thud, thud, thud. His face was ashen as he retreated continuously. Relying on his last bit of strength, he fell from the gigantic stone battlefield. Thud. Xueqi fell to the ground, covered in mud and looking wretched with a dark expression. His Tao heart was damaged and he no longer had the strength to fight. It was already extremely fortunate that he could survive. The cultivators of Mountain Sea Immortal Sect hurried forward and helped Xueqi up, returning to their seats. Yunting stood on the gigantic stone with his sword in hand. The color on his face had lessened significantly as well. He took out a handful of immortal pills and swallowed them all. Panting slightly, he did not continue chasing after Xueqi. Firstly, he had expended a lot of essence blood in this battle and needed to rest. Secondly, Xueqi failed in his previous life. Now that he was reborn, he suffered such a blow in this generation. Although he managed to survive today, his accomplishments would be limited in the future as well. At this point of the battle, there was already an outcome for the battles between the top 4 of the heaven ranking prediction. Under normal circumstances, Su Zimo and Yunting would be rank 1 and 2 respectively. Given Xueqi and Zhong Feiyu's capabilities, they would definitely occupy rank 3 and 4. But now, one of them was dead and the other was injured. They did not even have the chance to be on the heaven ranking. Many cultivators sighed internally. Initially, Xueqi and Zhong Feiyu wanted to take advantage of the situation and reap the rewards. To think that they would end up with 1 dead and 1 injured. One could not help but lament the irony of fate. On the second battlefield, Yunting looked at Su Zimo from afar and grinned. Su Zimo, you won. He was convinced of his defeat in this battle. It was not only because Su Zimo won before him. More than that, Yunting knew in his heart that it would be difficult for him to defend against Su Zimo's 3 killing moves. However, Yunting changed the topic and declared, "Just because I lost this battle doesn't mean that you can always defeat me. There's still a long way to go. One day, I'll beat you once." Su Zimo smiled without saying anything. If Yunting could not defeat him this time round, his chances of winning in the future would be even smaller. The difference between the two of them would only increase. Chapter 2585. 2585 Farewell. 2585 Farewell. Who else wants to challenge? Yunting wielded the divine Firmament sword. Although he expended a lot of energy, his body was still sharp as he surveyed his surroundings like lightning. The cultivators who were cheering for Xueqi and Zhong Feiyu earlier on no longer spoke. If even Xueqi and Zhong Feiyu were dead and injured, which other cultivator on the heaven ranking prediction would dare to challenge these two? Who knew if the two of them had any other tricks up their sleeves? A moment later, no one dared to step forward. Yun Ting turned around and looked at Immortal King Qingyang in the middle of the hall, declaring, "Immortal King Qingyang, you can announce the rank 1 and 2 of the heaven ranking this time round." Immortal King Qingyang smiled gently and nodded. "That's good as well. Rank 1 of the heaven ranking has to convince the masses. Since nobody has any objections, I'll announce now that the rank 1 of the heaven ranking this time round is Su Zimo of Heaven and Earth Academy. Rank 2 is Yun Ting of the Zixian Immortal Kingdom. The other battles for the heaven ranking shall proceed as per normal." Su Zimo and Yun Ting walked down the gigantic stone battlefield. Yun Ting flipped his palm and took out a withered yellow ancient scroll, tossing it in Su Zimo's direction. Su Zimo swept his gaze and recognized it right away. This ancient scroll was made from the same materials as the manuals of the heaven and earth slaying sword arts in his storage bag. Furthermore, although the ancient scroll looked calm, it was actually extremely sharp. The human slaying sword art. Su Zimo reached out and received the ancient scroll. One of the most important goals for them to challenge one another was to fuse the 3 great sword arts into one. This was what Yun Ting had to offer if he lost to Su Zimo. It was the same for the other way round. Given Yun Ting's character, there was naturally no way he would break his promise. After receiving the human-slaying sword art, Su Zimo pondered for a moment and took out 2 other withered yellow ancient scrolls from his storage bag, tossing them to Yun Ting. Su Zimo said, "These are the heaven and earth slaying sword arts." Ever since he ascended, Yun Ting was one of the few cultivators he had befriended and acknowledged in his heart. Although the 2 of them had fought twice, there was no deep feud. Su Zimo admired Yun Ting's pride, honesty and integrity. Furthermore, Yun Ting was Yun Zhu's younger brother. Since Yun Ting was willing to hand the human-slaying sword art to him, he did not want to take advantage of Yun Ting either. He handed the heaven and earth slaying sword arts to Yun Ting. Many cultivators were moved when they saw that. If it was anyone else, they would not show supreme cultivation techniques such as the heaven and earth slaying sword arts casually, even to those closest to them. To think that the 1,000 cultivators would be lucky enough to witness such a scene at the divine Firmament Immortal meet today. But soon, an even more shocking scene happened. After Yun Ting received the heaven and earth slaying sword arts, he threw them back to Su Zimo without even looking at them and shook his head. "I don't need them anymore." "Why?" Su Zimo frowned slightly in confusion. Yun Ting had never seen the heaven and earth slaying sword arts before. With just a single human slaying sword art, he cultivated the bloodline phenomenon of the incomplete immortal vanquishing sword. Given his talent, if he had seen the heaven and earth slaying sword arts, he would definitely be able to cultivate his bloodline phenomenon into a true peerless divine power. Furthermore, Su Zimo believed that Yun Ting would definitely comprehend the immortal vanquishing sword before him. "Prince Yun Ting, accept it." "That's right, don't be rash, Prince." Many cultivators of the Zixian Immortal Kingdom persuaded. The peerless divine power was within reach, but Yun Ting rejected it. "A defeat is a defeat." Yun Ting shook his head gently. In his opinion, Su Zimo giving him the 2 sword arts was a form of pity and charity. He would not accept it. Yun Ting looked into the distance with a moving glint in his eyes as he said slowly, "The 3 great sword arts were also created by humans. One day, I'll create my own sword Dao." At that moment Su Zimo understood. Since Yun Ting was defeated, he would not accept the heaven and earth slaying sword arts. This was Yun Ting's pride. In the eyes of everyone, a peerless divine power might be a tremendous opportunity. However, Yun Ting was indifferent. His sword Dao was indomitable. At that moment, Su Zimo vaguely realized that Yun Ting's future accomplishments were truly unimaginable. In the future, Yun Ting would definitely be one of the supreme experts of the upper world. How much determination and boldness did one need to abandon a peerless divine power that was within reach? "Su Zimo, I'm leaving." Yun Ting looked at Su Zimo and suddenly smiled. "Where to?" Su Zimo asked. "I don't know." Yun Ting shook his head. "I might take a spin around the other immortal domains, Fiend Domain or other worlds. Perhaps, I'll travel through the Trichiliacosm and see a wider world. I'll fight against even more experts and forge my heart of the sword while tempering my sword Dao." "Su Zimo, you have to be careful. The moment I return, I'll still challenge you." I hope that you won't lose too badly at that time. Although Yun Ting was smiling, there was a hint of sadness and melancholy in his tone. Are you leaving now? Su Zimo asked with a frown. Yes. Yun Ting nodded. Under normal circumstances, the rank 2 of the heaven ranking would receive the rewards of Divine Firmament Palace. However, that was no longer important to Yun Ting. Given his pride since he was already defeated, why should he linger here? I'm leaving. Yun Ting waved at Su Zimo and shifted his gaze to Yun Zhu, who was in the crowd of the Zhixian Immortal Kingdom cultivators. Although there were 1,000 cultivators in the Divine Firmament Hall, there were only 2 people worthy of him bidding farewell to. One was Su Zimo and the other was his sister, Book Immortal Yun Zhu. Unknowingly, Yun Zhu had already stood up and was looking at Yun Ting, who was not far away. Yun Zhu did not say anything, but there was a hint of worry and reluctance in the depths of her eyes. She was usually strict with this younger brother of hers and often scolded him to trigger him. However, at that moment, when she realized that Yun Ting was about to leave the Divine Firmament Immortal Domain and travel far away, she still felt a sense of sadness. Sister, I'm leaving. Yun Ting said softly. Yes. Yun Zhu did not say anything and merely replied softly. She lowered her head, not wanting anyone to see her gradually reddened eyes as she said gently, Be careful when you're out there and don't forget to come back. When he heard that, Yun Ting felt a lump in his throat. He shrugged his head, as though he wanted to shake off the sadness in his heart. Taking a deep breath of air, he suddenly turned around and glared at Su Zimo fiercely. Su Zimo was confused by Yun Ting's fixed gaze. Su Zimo, let me warn you, don't let my sister down. Otherwise, if I return and find out that you've abandoned her, I'll definitely kill you. Su Zimo was stunned on the spot, not understanding Yun Ting's random outburst. After saying that, Yun Ting leaped up and transformed into a sword beam, speeding into the distance and disappearing from everyone's line of sight in the blink of an eye. Chapter 2586. 2586 at odds. 2586 at odds. Yun Ting left in a carefree manner without turning back. Even though he was defeated this time round, it did not deal any blow to his Dao heart. Instead, it triggered an even stronger fighting spirit. In fact, he even wanted to leave the Divine Firmament Immortal Domain and the heavenly world to roam everywhere to temper his sword Dao. He knew that that was the only way he could surpass Su Zimo. Under normal circumstances, one could travel through the vast starry skies after cultivating to the heaven immortal realm. However, the starry skies between worlds were filled with countless dangers and unknowns. It was almost certain death for heaven immortals to cross the starry skies. They would most likely be buried under the boundless starry skies before they arrived at another world. One could only protect themselves while roaming the starry skies if they cultivated to the perfected immortal realm. That was the reason why Yun Zhu was so worried when Yun Ting made that decision. However, Yun Zhu did not stop him. She knew that this was the path Yun Ting had chosen. He had abandoned all notions of life and death to press forward. This was Yun Ting's sword Dao. How carefree! Xie Qingqing could not help but praise. Although Yun Ting lost this battle, in the hearts of many cultivators, he was still the #1 sword immortal of Divine Firmament. The righteousness of the sword Dao could only be seen from Yun Ting. He would rather break than bend and perish together with fearless and indomitable spirit. He did not care about fame. His fight with Su Zimo was merely for the sake of the heaven and earth slaying sword arts and his intent to beat the latter. He did not care about the rewards of the Divine Firmament Immortal Domain either. After the battle was over, he turned to leave, unwilling to stay here for a moment longer. Su Zimo returned to the seats of Heaven and Earth Academy. Many disciples of the academy stood up excitedly. Senior Brother Su, you're way too strong. Congratulations, Senior Brother Su. Everyone congratulated Su Zimo for his achievement as rank 1 of the heaven ranking. They felt proud and honored as well. At the very least, for the next 100,000 years, Heaven and Earth Academy would definitely be ranked above the other 3 immortal sects and immortal kingdoms in the Divine Firmament Immortal Domain. Congratulations, Junior Brother Su. Sword Immortal Yu Hua looked at the victorious Su Zimo and said indifferently with a calm expression. Yu Hua, sorry to disappoint you. Su Zimo smiled gently and retaliated. He had no intention of feigning civility with Sword Immortal Yu Hua. In fact, he did not even bother to address him as senior brother. The two of them had some conflicts in the academy previously. However, they were both disciples of the academy after all, and could maintain a superficial relationship. This time round, Sword Immortal Yu Hua actually joined forces with outsiders to attack him at the Divine Firmament Immortal meet. If Chess Immortal Junyu had not arrived, he might have died here. Since they had already fallen out, there was no need for Su Zimo to show restraint. Yang Ruoxu frowned slightly in disapproval. He could naturally understand Su Zimo's anger. However, Sword Immortal Yu Hua was the #1 legacy disciple of Heaven and Earth Academy after all. If Su Zimo openly offended him, Su Zimo would face even more trouble in the academy in the future. Yang Ruoxu sent a voice transmission secretly. Brother Su, why don't you endure it? Once you break through to the perfected one realm and become a legacy disciple, you can fall out with Sword Immortal Yu Hua at that time. Su Zimo was silent. Since he dared to rebut Sword Immortal Yu Hua, he had naturally made up his mind. Junior brother Su, watch your words. Perfected Immortal Chen Xian hollered with a sharp expression. Sword Immortal Yu Hua waved his hand gently to stop Chen Xian from continuing with his threat and said indifferently, Junior brother Su, you're still young so I won't blame your brashness. However, the road ahead is long. You're far from being able to challenge me. If I don't give up the position of the #1 legacy disciple of Heaven and Earth Academy, no one will be able to take it away, including you. The road ahead is long? Heh. Suddenly, Su Zimo laughed. I've just divined things for you. Your days are numbered. Sword Immortal Yu Hua and Zither Immortal Meng Yao's actions today had already triggered his killing intent completely. It was impolite not to reciprocate. Since these people joined forces to attack him, he no longer had to hold back. At the 9 Firmament meet, he would get the Martial Dao Prime Body to come out and give them a huge gift. Be it Zither Immortal Meng Yao or Sword Immortal Yu Hua, these people were way too much of a threat to him. Although he was spared this time round, there would be even greater trouble in the future. It was better for the Martial Dao Prime Body to attack at the 9 Firmament meet to settle things once and for all. He'll resort to drastic measures and kill them until the entire world was overturned. Of course, the 9 Firmament meet would not only be filled with Paragon experts from the 9 Firmament Immortal domain. There would also be many accomplished monks of the Pure Land of Bliss. At that time, there would also be immortal kings and heavenly kings presiding over things. Given the current strength of the Martial Dao Prime Body, he could not fight immortal kings head-on. It was both extremely dangerous and difficult if he wanted to cause trouble at the 9 Firmament meet. Naturally, Sword Immortal Yu Hua did not take Su Zimo's threat to heart. Notwithstanding the fact that Su Zimo was only a Grade 8 Heaven Immortal right now, even if he cultivated to become a Grade 9 Heaven Immortal or even advance to the Perfected One realm, there was no way Su Zimo could threaten him. Sword Immortal Yu Hua smiled indifferently. Junior brother Su, you'll only become a joke if you speak without thinking. Pausing for a moment, he changed the topic. No matter what, the fact that you obtained rank 1 of both the Earth and Heaven rankings is indeed celebratory news. All these years, the only other person with such accomplishments should be Feng Cantillon from hundreds of thousands of years ago. Coincidentally, the two of you are from the lower worlds and seem to know one another? Feng Cantillon has already established himself in the Fiend domain. I wonder if you're still in contact with him, junior brother Su. When she heard that, Yunju frowned slightly. Those words were meant to kill. Many cultivators felt their hearts skip a beat. The expression of Immortal King Qing Yang changed as he looked at Su Zimo. Although Sword Immortal Yu Hua seemed like he was congratulating Su Zimo, his words were filled with killing intent. The fact that Su Zimo was mentioned together with Feng Cantillon was also a reminder to Divine Firmament Palace that Su Zimo might be the second Feng Cantillon. Junior brother Su, come sit with me. Before Su Zimo could speak, Mo Qing suddenly beckoned to him. Although Mo Qing did not say anything, her actions were clearly to protect Su Zimo. Instantly, Sword Immortal Yu Hua was filled with immense jealousy. Initially, Mo Qing was sitting with Yun Zhu. After Su Zimo walked over, Mo Qing turned slightly and made way. Su Zimo sat in the middle of the two fairies and attracted another series of envious gazes. Ranks 1 and 2 of the heaven ranking were already decided, but the battles for the heaven ranking were not over yet. A few gigantic stone battlefields rose and cultivators on the heaven ranking prediction entered one after another, including Lai Xian of the Yen-Yang Immortal Kingdom as well as Yen Bingying of Heaven and Earth Academy. After a series of ranking battles, the heaven ranking was gradually decided. The ranking battles were extremely intense. Among them, Lai Xian's Rising Nine Suns, the bloodline phenomenon of the Yen-Yang Great Sun Sutra, was even more eye-catching. After Zhong Feiyu's death and Qin Gu's serious injuries, he ascended to rank 3 with utter dominance. However, with the 3 fights between Su Zimo, Yun Ting, Qin Gu and Zhong Feiyu taking place first, the ranking battles later on seemed much more boring. In less than a day, the heaven ranking of this generation was out. Chapter 2587. 2587 Mystic Frost Plum Trees. 2587 Mystic Frost Plum Tree. Eventually, the heaven ranking was displayed in the firmaments with the titles of paragons displayed. Among them, the most striking was rank 1 of the heaven ranking. Every single word shone with a golden light that illuminated the entire world. Heaven and Earth Academy, Su Zimo. Furthermore, he obtained rank 1 of the heaven ranking as a grade 8 heaven immortal. This was an unprecedented situation. The discussions in the Divine Firmament Hall did not stop. Too many things had happened at the Divine Firmament Immortal Meet this time round. The gathering of the 3 great sword immortals and 4 great fairies was an unprecedented grand occasion. What was even more shocking was that these perfected immortal experts fought because of a heaven immortal of the Academy. In fact, many perfected immortals died in the Divine Firmament Hall. This had never happened at the Divine Firmament Immortal Meet in the past. Immortal King Qingyang pressed his hands against the air and exuded a tremendous might, suppressing the discussions of many cultivators before saying slowly, "No matter the ranking, the 100 cultivators on the heaven ranking are the strongest and most outstanding heaven immortals of the Divine Firmament Immortal domain in this generation. I hope that everyone on the heaven ranking can advance courageously and strive to break through to the perfected one realm as soon as possible. Condense your Tao fruits to become perfected immortals. As a reward for being on the heaven ranking, everyone shall first receive a cup of fragrant tea." Immortal King Qingyang waved his hand. The 100 beautiful maidservants that were initially standing behind him each carried a table with a steaming cup of fragrant tea on it, and sent it to the cultivators of the heaven ranking one after another. That scene instantly attracted the envy of countless cultivators. Su Zimo received the fragrant tea and looked inside. A plum floated in the tea, emitting a unique fragrance mixed with the scorching water of the spirit spring. "This is the Mystic Frost Plum Tea." Yun Zhu explained, "There's an immortal tree in the Divine Firmament Immortal domain called the Mystic Frost Plum Tree. The plums in the tea are from the Mystic Frost Plum Tree." Back in the Jade Firmament Immortal domain, Lin Luo had told him that. In the 9 Firmament Immortal domain, every immortal domain had their own unique immortal tree to absorb a large amount of heaven and earth essence qi. It was also the center of the various immortal domains. In the Jade Firmament Immortal domain was the Peach Immortal Tree. In the Green Firmament Immortal domain where the human monarch, Lin Luo and the others were located was an immortal willow. As for the Divine Firmament Immortal domain, it was a Mystic Frost Plum Tree. "What's the use of the Mystic Frost Plum Tea?" Su Zimo asked. Yun Zhu said, "The Mystic Frost Plum Tea can help cultivators dispel the barrier of their bottlenecks. Right now, you're a grade 8 heaven immortal. If you cultivate to the peak of a grade 8 heaven immortal and have sufficient heaven and earth essence qi in your body, you can break through directly without looking for another opportunity. The Mystic Frost Plum Tea is the best opportunity for breakthroughs. Of course, only the top 10 of the heaven ranking can drink the Mystic Frost Plum Tea. The remaining 90 cultivators drink the Mystic Frost Plum Leaf Tea. Although the difference is only a single word, the effect is worlds apart." Su Zimo nodded and drank the Mystic Frost Plum Tea in one gulp without hesitation. He did not even waste the plum in the tea and swallowed it. The spirit qi in the tea was rich and spewed out. As the scorching tea entered his stomach, a strange power surged into his spirit platform, invigorating Su Zimo. He had just recovered more than half of the energy he had expended after the 2 battles with Yun Ting and Zhong Feiyu. Immediately after, a chilling intent exploded in his stomach. Su Zimo's expression changed slightly. The chill came from the plum in the tea. Although it was engulfed by boiling tea, the plum contained a shocking coldness that could not be melted and spread rapidly within Su Zimo's body. In the blink of an eye, a layer of ice formed on the surface of Su Zimo's body. Even his hair and brows turned white and turned into frost. If he channeled his blood qi, he could naturally neutralize the coldness with ease. However, Su Zimo was wary and did not act rashly. Instead, he absorbed and refined it slowly with his body. A moment later, his body returned to normal. It was a pity that he had just broken through to become a grade 8 heaven immortal. Even after drinking this cup of mystic frost plum tea, he could not break through immediately. As though she could read Su Zimo's mind, Yun Zhu smiled. "Don't worry, there will be more rewards and opportunities later on." Right then, when Immortal King Qingyang saw that everyone on the heaven ranking had already drunk their immortal tea, he continued, "Everyone on the heaven ranking, prepare yourself and follow me to a sacred cultivation ground in Divine Firmament Palace. As for how long you can cultivate inside, that will depend on your luck and capabilities." Immortal King Qingyang waved his robes and tore the void apart. A cold wind gusted within and led to an unknown place. Su Zimo and the other 100 heaven-ranking cultivators stood up and followed Immortal King Qingyang into the void. Before long, everyone descended. Snow covered the entire place and everything was frozen. Pest! It was as though everyone had arrived at a frozen world. The weather was cold and the surroundings were filled with a chilling intent. Everyone could not help but shudder. More than 10 cultivators could no longer hold on and shivered in fear. Relying on the powerful physique of the Green Lotus True Body, Su Zimo could still endure the coldness. He was shocked to discover that the heaven and earth essence qi in the frozen world was terrifyingly rich. The surrounding cold qi seeped into his body through every pore and was filled with rich heaven and earth essence qi. If he refined it, his cultivation would definitely advance by leaps and bounds. "I believe everyone has noticed it," Immortal King Qingyang said. "Although the environment here is cruel and harsh, if you can persevere here, it will be extremely beneficial to your cultivation. There's a talisman here. If you can't hold on, all you have to do is tear it apart and you can leave this place at any moment." As he said that, Immortal King Qingyang waved his robes and sent the 100 talismans to the cultivators. Immortal King Qingyang continued, "There's one more thing I have to remind you guys. It's best not to wander around casually here. The degree of coldness in every region is different. If you go too far, you might even die here, let alone cultivate." All the cultivators nodded hurriedly. In a flash, Immortal King Qingyang tore through the void and vanished. Many cultivators assumed a lotus position hurriedly and channeled their blood qi, trying their best to absorb and refine the cold qi in their bodies to defend against the bone-chilling coldness. Su Zimo stood on the spot motionlessly and did not cultivate right away. Although the surrounding coldness was strong, it posed no threat to him. He pondered in silence and looked in a direction in the frozen world. For some unknown reason, he had a feeling that there was something in that direction that was extremely attractive to his Green Lotus True Body. Right then, in less than 10 breaths, some cultivators could not hold on any longer and tore their talismans apart, leaving the place. Su Zimo hesitated slightly and walked slowly in that direction. "Senior brother Su, you..." When Yan Bingying saw that, she was alarmed and called out hurriedly. "It's fine, I'll go take a look," Su Zimo said casually and continued forward. As he ventured deeper, he could clearly feel the coldness around him intensifying. A cold wind howled, sweeping up snowflakes that blew towards him. After walking for a long time, Su Zimo finally stopped when he felt his bloodline showing signs of freezing up. Through the heavy snowstorm, he could vaguely see a gigantic ancient tree standing in the distance ahead. It was snow-white and had lush leaves. Every single leaf was crystal clear with fruits hanging on them. The mystic frost plum tree. Chapter 2588. 2588 Grade 9 Heaven Immortal. 2588 Grade 9 Heaven Immortal. Su Zimo pondered for a moment and was tempted. Naturally, His cultivation speed would be much faster cultivating in this frozen world. However, he would have to resort to some unorthodox means if he wanted to cultivate to the peak of a grade 8 heaven immortal in a short period of time. The crystalline plums on the mystic frost plum tree were the best tonic for Xueqi. Of course, this was a little rash. However, Immortal King Qingyang did not mention this matter, nor did he say explicitly that cultivators who entered this place were not allowed to pluck the mystic frost plums. In reality, it was not because Immortal King Qingyang was careless. Throughout history, it was already the limit for any heaven immortal that entered this place to cultivate while defending against the surrounding cold. Even if some cultivators mustered their courage and wandered around, they would not be able to walk far. The reason why Xueqi could arrive here was entirely because of the physique of the green lotus true body. Although the mystic frost plum tree was an immortal tree of the divine firmament immortal domain and had lived for countless years, it was still a flora-type living being. All those living beings had to bow down in the face of the creation green lotus. Now that he had a plan in mind, Xueqi no longer hesitated. He took a deep breath and strode in the direction of the mystic frost plum tree. Since he had decided on this matter, he could not hesitate. Once this matter was exposed, someone would definitely step in to stop him. Before long, Xueqi arrived beneath the mystic frost plum tree. His entire body was covered by a layer of frost and there were ice crystals on his hair and brows. Every single breath he took was filled with white fog. Xueqi circulated his blood qi slowly to defend against the surrounding coldness. Thereafter, he leaped onto a branch and reached out to pluck the plum on it, stuffing it into his mouth. Before the plum was completely chewed, he had already plucked a second plum and placed it into his mouth. In just a few breaths, Xueqi had already eaten more than 10 plums in succession and was swallowing them heartily. Divine Firmament Hall. Many cultivators had yet to disperse and were waiting for the heaven-ranking cultivators to return from the secret ground. Before long, heaven-ranking cultivators appeared one after another and returned to the Divine Firmament Hall from the secret ground. Although everyone was severely frozen, their bodies were filled with spirit qi and their mental states were at their peak. As long as there was a suitable opportunity, there was a chance for them to break through. Everyone is back, right? Immortal King Qingyang swept his gaze and asked casually. Xueqi of the academy has yet to return. Many disciples of the academy said hurriedly. Immortal King Qingyang frowned slightly and murmured, he stayed inside for so long. Immediately after, as though he sensed something, Immortal King Qingyang was shocked and tore through the void to leave. Before long, he whisked Xueqi back from the secret ground and threw the latter into the Divine Firmament Hall with a terrible expression. What's going on? Everyone from Heaven and Earth Academy stood up. Humph. Immortal King Qingyang had a terrible expression. Xueqi, how dare you pluck the mystic frost plums on your own and eat them directly? Even after Xueqi was whisked out, he was still chewing something. His cheeks were puffed up and it was unknown how much he had eaten. However, before long, a layer of ice appeared on Xueqi's body and grew thicker. In the blink of an eye, he transformed into a gigantic ice cocoon. Xueqi was frozen within and did not move at all. Even his life force did not fluctuate. Junior brother Su. Mo Qing's expression changed slightly and she wanted to knock open the ice cocoon to save Xueqi. Yun Zhu had a grim expression as she pulled Mo Qing back hurriedly and said in a deep voice, "Don't be rash. If we go up and shatter this ice cocoon now, even Zimo will be shattered." That's right. Immortal King Qingyang sneered. Xueqi is extremely audacious. He ate dozens of mystic frost plums and will definitely die. At that point, Sword Immortal Yu Hua, Meng Yao, Perfected Immortal Wu Feng and the others were truly surprised and delighted. They racked their brains but could not kill Xueqi. To think that this person ended up killing himself. Immortal King Qingyang continued. The coldness contained in the mystic frost plums is way too strong. One can only gradually digest it after cultivating to the perfected immortal realm and condensing a Dao fruit. This lad is only a grade 8 heaven immortal. He truly has a death wish for devouring dozens of mystic frost plums in one go. Sword Immortal Yu Hua laughed internally but there was a look of pity on his face. Sigh, junior brother Su is young and impetuous. He doesn't know his limits and can only blame himself for landing in such a state. Only perfected immortals can digest it. Yang Ruoxu frowned. Didn't junior brother Su and the others drink a cup of mystic frost plum tea previously? There was a mystic frost plum in it. Immortal King Qingyang sneered. The reason why heaven immortals can drink the mystic frost plum tea is because the water used to brew the tea is a hot spring in divine Firmament Palace to begin with. It can neutralize the coldness in the mystic frost plum tea. This lad is way too greedy and chose to eat the mystic frost plums directly. That's the reason why he ended up in such a state. Mo Qing was at a loss. Yun Zhu frowned with disbelief in her eyes. She still could not believe it. Chess Immortal Jun Yu sighed gently. Even the many disciples of Heaven and Earth Academy were stunned on the spot. Su Zimo had just obtained rank 1 of the Heaven ranking. To think that he would end up in such a state. The huge fluctuations between joy and sadness was too great for everyone, and they could not recover for a moment. Ha ha! On the side of the great Gene Immortal Kingdom, a cultivator could not hold it in any longer and burst into laughter. What a joke! To think that the rank 1 of the Heaven ranking would die to his own greed. Throughout history, this is probably the only rank 1 of the Heaven ranking with such a short lifespan, right? How ironic! The rank 1 of the Heaven ranking actually committed suicide in public. Cultivators from sects and factions that had bad ties with Su Zimo, such as the Great Gene Immortal Kingdom and Flying Immortal Sect, stood out and mocked before long. Creak! Right then, a strange sound came from the motionless ice cocoon in the Divine Firmament Hall, as though something had cracked. Instantly, the discussions around them turned hushed. Everyone looked over and their expressions changed. A thin crack appeared on the ice cocoon. Under countless gazes, the crack expanded and extended continuously, covering the entire ice cocoon before long. Wah! Many cultivators widened their eyes. The expression of Immortal King Qingyang turned bewildered as well. Through the cracks of the ice cocoon, he could vaguely sense a wisp of life force fluctuation. Furthermore, the fluctuation was getting more obvious. How was that possible? Could that lad be alive still? Boom! After a momentary silence, accompanied by a deafening bang, the ice cocoon suddenly exploded and a figure broke free, emitting an extremely powerful aura. Steam rose from Su Zimo's body and every single breath he took was filled with rich heaven and earth essence qi. His entire body was enveloped by heaven and earth essence qi and nourished continuously. Everyone swept their spirit consciousnesses and could not help but gasp. A grade 9 heaven immortal. Relying on dozens of mystic frost plums, Su Zimo broke through from the realm of a grade 8 heaven immortal to become a grade 9 heaven immortal in less than 2 hours. Chapter 2589 2589 Dharmic Dao Stele 2589 Dharmic Dao Stele. Even though they saw it personally, everyone still felt that it was surreal. Could this be considered a miracle? For the heaven immortals present, even if they were geniuses, it would take them thousands or tens of thousands of years to advance from a grade 8 heaven immortal to a grade 9 heaven immortal. The person before them took less than 2 hours. Furthermore, even if many cultivators knew of this method, they would not dare to attempt it. Mystic frost plums that could only be absorbed and refined by perfected immortals. Who would dare to eat them even if they were asked to? Furthermore, he had consumed dozens of them in one go. Immortal King Qingyang looked at Su Zimo and frowned with a bewildered expression. Even with his knowledge and experience, he could not figure out the reason for it right away. Under normal circumstances, heaven immortals were indeed unable to absorb and refine the mystic frost plums. As Immortal King Qingyang said, the mystic frost plums could only be consumed by heaven immortals after they were soaked in the hot spring water nurtured within divine Firmament Palace to expel their coldness. In reality, the bloodline of the Green Lotus True Body replaced the use of divine Firmament Palace's hot spring. To be precise, the bloodline of the Green Lotus True Body was even stronger than divine Firmament Palace's hot spring. That was the reason why Su Zimo was able to consume dozens of mystic frost plums and refine the energy within safely. At the same time, the mystic frost plum tea resolved his bottleneck, allowing him to break through and advance to become a grade 9 heaven immortal. The excitement and joy that soared Immortal Yu Hua, Meng Yao and the others felt vanished instantly. All of them had grim expressions and remained silent. Many cultivators of Heaven and Earth Academy shouted, The three fairies heaved a sigh of relief. Su Zimo broke free and bowed slightly in the direction of Immortal King Qingyang. He cupped his fists. It's all thanks to the blessings of Divine Firmament Palace and Immortal King Qingyang that I was able to obtain this opportunity. When she heard that, Yunzhu pursed her lips and smiled, thinking to herself that he was smart. Given the status of Divine Firmament Palace and Immortal King Qingyang, it was naturally inappropriate for them to seek accountability from Su Zimo. After all, there had never been a precedent for something like this. Prior to this, there were no rules that prohibited cultivators who entered the secret ground from plucking the mystic frost plums. Indeed, when Immortal King Qingyang heard that, he could not make things difficult and could only suppress the anger in his heart. He harumphed coldly and grit his teeth. It's good that you know. Never forget this opportunity given to you by Divine Firmament Palace. Of course. Su Zimo nodded. Immortal King Qingyang took another deep breath and said, Cultivators on the heaven ranking, follow me to the enlightenment field of Divine Firmament Palace to browse through the Dharmic Tao experiences left behind by the predecessors of Divine Firmament Palace. In the enlightenment field of Divine Firmament Palace, there were many Dharmic Tao experiences left behind by perfected immortals of Divine Firmament Palace. Almost all the heaven immortals on the heaven ranking were at the peak of grade 9. They had just drunk immortal tea and cultivated in the secret ground. If they browsed through the Dharmic Taos left behind by the predecessors, there was a high chance that they could find an opportunity to break through and condense a Tao fruit to advance to the perfected immortal realm. Ever since the establishment of the heaven ranking, in every generation, there would always be heaven immortals who made use of the series of rewards to become perfected immortals. Su Zimo had just broken through to become a grade 9 heaven immortal and had yet to cultivate to the peak, so he was unable to attempt to break through to the perfected one realm. However, the many Dharmic Tao experiences left behind by Divine Firmament Palace's predecessors would still be of great help to him. After all, the path taken by the Martial Tao Prime Body was completely different from the path taken by the Green Lotus True Body. The Martial Tao Prime Body condensed the true Martial Tao Body. He was not of much help to the Green Lotus True Body when it came to condensing a Tao fruit and breaking through to the perfected one realm. At that moment, twilight was approaching. Many cultivators followed their respective sects and factions and gradually dispersed, returning to their residences to rest. The Divine Firmament Immortal Meet would continue for a few more days, and it would be convenient for many cultivators to trade and exchange their insights on Dharmic Das. However, for many cultivators, the Divine Firmament Immortal Meet was no longer lively. Su Zimo was in no hurry to follow behind everyone from the heaven ranking. Instead, he came to Mo Qing's side and took out 2 mystic frost plums from his storage bag, stuffing them into her hands secretly. Thank you for everything, senior sister. Su Zimo said softly. Thereafter, he came to Yunzhu's side and took out 2 mystic frost plums as well. He secretly handed them over and expressed his thanks. Immediately after, he gave Junyu another 2 mystic frost plums. Earlier on in the secret ground, the sudden appearance of Immortal King Qingyang gave him no time to pluck more. He could only grab a handful casually and hide them in his storage bag. Coincidentally, there were 6 of them. Now that everyone had left, he distributed the 6 mystic frost plums to the 3 fairies. The reason why he could survive the Divine Firmament Immortal Meet this time round was because the 3 fairies stepped in. It was naturally nothing much for him to give away the 6 mystic frost plums. However, the 3 fairies had different thoughts after obtaining 2 mystic frost plums each. With an indifferent expression, Junyu did not think too much about it and merely expressed her thanks. Mo Qing lowered her head slightly and looked at the 2 mystic frost plums in her palm in deep thought. Yunzhu witnessed Su Zimo's actions. When she saw him stuffing the plums to her stealthily while thanking her with utmost sincerity, she felt both angry and amused. However, she could not say anything explicitly. After doing that, Su Zimo caught up to everyone on the heaven ranking and headed to the enlightenment field of Divine Firmament Palace together. Large steles were erected one after another in the enlightenment ground. Every single stele was etched with dense words. At the end of the words were the names of the predecessors. Su Zimo chose a random stele and read through its contents before nodding to himself. A perfected immortal named Dao Qing recorded in detail on the stele how he condensed his Dao fruit, how he broke through to the perfected one realm and even the process of tribulation transcendence. Most of the time, Su Zimo felt nothing when he looked at them. However, some of the explanations were extremely beneficial to him. This time round, Su Zimo did not alarm the martial Tao prime body. The contents recorded on the stele were how to condense the Tao fruit and attain the Dharmic Tao of a perfected immortal. It was useless for the martial Tao prime body. Su Zimo secretly held the Bodhi seed in his hands as he browsed through everything. Although he could not break through right now, the Dharmic Tao experiences were etched in his mind and would be extremely important for his future breakthrough to the perfected One realm. Su Zimo knew his situation. Under normal circumstances, cultivators would usually have their own inclinations towards a certain Dharmic Tao direction. For example, Yun Ting specialized in the sword Tao. Mo Qing was obsessed with the painting Tao. Junyu specialized in the chess Tao. However, Su Zimo's situation was extremely special. His body and bloodline belonged to the creation Green Lotus. In terms of the Dharmic Tao he cultivated, he possessed a taboo mystic classic of the Buddhist monasteries, the Prajna Nirvana Sutra, as well as other taboo mystic classics of the immortal sects such as the Pure Jade Manual, the Void Thunder Manual and the Three Great Sword Arts. In recent years, he had even cultivated a taboo mystic classic of the Fiend sects, the Heaven Burial Sutra. In fact, in the demonic Tao, he even cultivated the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the great wilderness that Dai Yu created for him. Right now, many powerful divine powers he relied on came from that supreme demon classic. Therefore, it was extremely difficult and complicated for him to condense a Tao fruit. Chapter 2590. 2599 Firmament Meat. 2599 Firmament Meat. The divine firmament immortal meat would last for a month. However, after the ranking battle of the heaven ranking, the divine firmament immortal meat did not have much of a stir for the next period of time and was relatively calm. Before the divine firmament immortal meat ended, many cultivators dispersed and returned to their sections. This divine firmament immortal meat caused a huge stir in the entire 9 firmament immortal domain. The fight between the 4 great fairies was secondary. Yun Ting's defeat was enough to shock countless cultivators as well. However, the gossip that truly attracted countless cultivators to discuss fervently was the various rumors about the 4 great fairies and the rank 1 of the heaven ranking. In the enlightenment field of Divine Firmament Palace, Su Zimo browsed through the Dharmic Tao experiences left behind by the predecessors before returning to Heaven and Earth Academy to continue his seclusion. Another month passed. This day, Yang Ruoxu and Princess Scarlet Rainbow arrived hand in hand. Tao Yao and Lu Ping welcomed the 2 of them into the cave abode. Brother Yang, Scarlet Rainbows. Su Zimo came out of seclusion and invited the 2 of them to take a seat. Yang Ruoxu asked, "The 9 firmament meet is in a few days. How are your preparations, Brother Su?" "There's nothing for me to prepare." Su Zimo smiled. The 9 firmament meet is an event catered for perfected immortal experts. Right now, I'm only a heaven immortal. I'm just tagging along with the academy to join the crowd. The 9 Firmament Meet was a grand event held by the 9 Firmament Immortal Domain and Pure Land of Bliss. At this grand event, the perfected immortal and Arhut rankings would be listed to determine the supreme perfected immortal of the 9 Firmament Immortal Domain and the supreme Arhut of the Pure Land of Bliss. The reason why Su Zimo was qualified to tag along with the academy was mainly because he was rank 1 of the heaven ranking in this generation in the Divine Firmament Immortal Domain. To be precise, the 100 heaven immortals on the heaven ranking were all qualified to follow their sects and factions to the 9 Firmament Meet and participate in this rare event of the heavenly world. However, in reality, perfected immortal experts of the major sects and factions were the absolute protagonists of this event. "Don't be careless," Princess Scarlet Rainbow said with a fake smile. "After the Divine Firmament Immortal Meet, there were all sorts of rumors about you and the 4 great fairies. Right now, you've already become the target of many cultivators of the 9 Firmament Immortal Domain." "How is that possible?" Su Zimo burst into laughter. Princess Scarlet Rainbow smiled. "Of course. In the hearts of the cultivators, the 4 great fairies are high and mighty existences that can't be sullied. But now, not only are you involved with them, you took on 4 of them at one go. Who could endure that?" Su Zimo shook his head helplessly. "That's not true. Those are just groundless rumors." Rumors spread like wildfire. The more they spread, the more people will naturally believe them. Princess Scarlet Rainbow said. Yang Ruoxu pondered for a moment. Even without that reason, there's a chance that some people will come and challenge you. Since it's called the 9 Firmament Immortal Domain, it means that there will be 9 rank 1s of the heaven rankings. All of them are paragons and monster incarnates who are prideful. It's inevitable that there will be conflicts and fights. In any case, you have to be mentally prepared and not be careless. Su Zimo nodded. 2 figures flashed through his mind. Back in the Jade Firmament Immortal Domain, he encountered Prince Ying Tian and Princess Lang Qianqian. There was a high chance that he would encounter these two at the 9 Firmament meet this time round. Yang Ruoxu continued, in addition, the 9 Firmament meet this time round is a little different from the past. After all, there has been constant turmoil in the Fiend domain in recent years. The reappearance of 2 peerless fiends in the heavenly world and a supreme monster incarnate like Desolate Marshal have attracted the attention of the 9 Firmament Immortal Domain and Pure Land of Bliss. From what I know, at the 9 Firmament meet this time round, every immortal domain will have at least a supreme immortal king holding down the fort. It should be the same for the Pure Land of Bliss. Under normal circumstances, the major sects would only send a single immortal king to lead their factions at the 9 Firmament meet. After all, the 9 Firmament meet was mainly a fight between perfected immortal experts. But now, because of the commotion from the Fiend domain, the 9 Firmament Immortal Domain and Pure Land of Bliss were on guard and even sent supreme immortal kings to hold down the fort. Su Zimo was silent. That way, it would be even more dangerous for the Martial Dao Prime Body to cause a stir at the 9 Firmament meet. If there were too many Immortal King experts or Supreme Immortal Kings holding down the fort, he might not be able to escape unscathed even with the help of the Hell Suppression tripod. During this period of time, Su Zimo did not disturb the Martial Dao Prime Body. The Martial Dao Prime Body cultivated in seclusion in Avicii to deduce his cultivation technique. He had already cultivated to the most critical point. If he could comprehend it, there was a high chance he could unlock the future Dao of the Martial Dao Prime Body and see the other end of the road. Su Zimo asked, which immortal king will be leading the academy? It said that the sect master asked the Grand Elder to lead the group. Yang Ruoxu said, although the Grand Elder is old, his cultivation realm is still present and he's also a supreme immortal king. With that, if anything happens to Heaven and Earth Academy, we can deal with it with ease. I heard that Immortal King Qing Yang of Divine Firmament Palace will be leading the cultivators of the 4 immortal sects and 3 immortal kingdoms this time round. Immortal King Qing Yang was also a supreme immortal king. Su Zimo remained silent. According to Yang Ruoxu, every immortal domain would have a supreme immortal king holding down the fort. And now, there were 2 alone from the Divine Firmament Immortal Domain, Immortal King Qing Yang and the Grand Elder of the Academy. In other words, there would be at least 10 supreme immortal kings in the 9 Firmament Immortal Domain and even more ordinary immortal kings. On the side of the Pure Land of Bliss, there were 4 continents. Purvavidaha in the east, Jambudvipa in the south, Aparagodania in the west and Uttarakuru in the north. If nothing went wrong, every continent would send out supreme heavenly kings as well. There were at least 10 supreme immortal kings alone. To think that so many Grotto Heaven Realm experts would be attracted to this 9 Firmament meet. Unless an emperor descended, no one would be able to cause trouble at the 9 Firmament meet. Even if an emperor appeared, he might not be able to cause much trouble. There was a high chance that there were some Emperor-level Immortal and Buddha experts in the darkness of the 9 Firmament meet paying attention to this event to prevent any accidents. Even so, Su Zimo had high hopes for the 9 Firmament meet. He did not know if the human monarch and immortal Queen Ling Long of the Battle Kingdom of the Green Firmament Immortal Domain would appear or if the human monarch's injuries were healed. If he had the chance to meet immortal Queen Ling Long this time round, he would definitely thank her for her life-saving grace. Perhaps, he might be able to obtain some clues about the assassination attempt when he ascended from immortal Queen Ling Long. He did not know if he would have the chance to meet some other old friends of Tianhuang mainland as well at this 9 Firmament meet. 3 days later. A few bells sounded in succession from Heaven and Earth Academy. The 9 Firmament meet was about to begin. It was the bell to gather the legacy disciples of the Academy. Many legacy disciples came out of seclusion one after another and galloped through the Academy, turning into streaks of light. Under the envious gazes of countless inner and outer sect disciples, They gathered at the entrance of the sect. Su Zimo walked out of his cave abode and sped over as well. He had no intention of bringing Lu Ping and Tao Yao along this time round. Tao Yao had appeared in the Jade Firmament Immortal domain before after all. If he was recognized at the 9 Firmament meet this time round, it was inevitable that there would be unnecessary trouble. The Grand Elder was leading the group for Heaven and Earth Academy this time round. Of the hundreds of legacy disciples, Sword Immortal Yu Hua was naturally the leader. Mo Qing did not choose to enter seclusion in her cave abode either and was prepared to follow the academy to the 9 Firmament meet. The moment Su Zimo arrived at the entrance of the academy, Mo Qing caught sight of him and beckoned to him. Chapter 2591. 2591 Builder Tree Mountain Range. 2591 Builder Tree Mountain Range. Many disciples of the academy had different expressions when they saw Fairy Mo Qing call Su Zimo over. The disciples of the academy could long tell that Mo Qing clearly treated Su Zimo different from her fellow sect mates. However, it did not seem like there was any more intimate relationship between Fairy Mo Qing and Su Zimo. It seemed like Fairy Mo Qing was merely taking better care of Su Zimo. At the very least, the two of them had never shown any intimate actions. However, the fact that painting Immortal Mo Qing was willing to give him special treatment was enviable enough. Most legacy disciples of the academy knew their limits. Although they had admired Mo Qing for a long time, they had never harbored any improper thoughts. However, it was different for Sword Immortal Yu Hua. All the disciples of the academy knew that Sword Immortal Yu Hua had courted Fairy Mo Qing painstakingly for many years. Fairy Mo Qing's attitude towards Sword Immortal Yu Hua had always been neutral. Ever since the Divine Firmament Immortal meet, Fairy Mo Qing did not even greet Sword Immortal Yu Hua when she saw him. Everyone could tell that there was no longer any possibility between the two of them. Right now, they were merely maintaining a relationship as fellow sect mates. Sword Immortal Yu Hua did not seem to have seen Mo Qing and Su Zimo walking together. He looked into the distance with a cold expression and remained silent. Senior sister, your cultivation. Arriving before Mo Qing, Su Zimo swept his spirit consciousness and could vaguely sense that senior sister Mo Qing seemed to be different from back when she was at the Divine Firmament Immortal meet. He was already a grade 9 Heaven Immortal. Even without using the 6-tusk Divine Strength, the strength of his spirit consciousness had already touched the threshold of the perfected One realm and he could naturally sense the slight changes in Mo Qing. Yes. Mo Qing nodded. My cultivation has improved and I've already cultivated to the Paradise Void realm of the perfected One realm. Pausing for a moment, she continued. The 2 mystic frost plums you gave me were quite useful. Thank you. It's fine, it's nothing much. Su Zimo smiled. The perfected One realm was divided into Convergence, Celestial Being, Hollow Nether and Paradise Void. Apart from the 2 mystic frost plums that Su Zimo gave her, the reason why Mo Qing was able to cultivate to the Paradise Void realm was because she had another breakthrough in her comprehension of the Divine Ghost Immortal Fiend diagram. Previously, she had only comprehended the god figure of the Divine Ghost Immortal Fiend diagram. But now, she had comprehended another of them, the Fiend figure. There was a reason why Mo Qing chose to skip the ghost and immortal figures to comprehend the fiend figure first. However, the 9 Firmament meet was about to begin and she did not have the time or opportunity to verify her thoughts. Before long, hundreds of perfected immortals from the academy were already gathered in front of the sect. Apart from some perfected immortals who were at a critical juncture of their cultivation and could not leave, most of the legacy disciples were prepared to head to the 9 Firmament meet. Most of them were not qualified to fight for the perfected immortal ranking. However, the fight between top experts for the perfected immortal ranking was a grand event that could not be missed for everyone. They would definitely learn something by watching the fights between the top perfected immortals and verifying it against their own learnings. Let's go! The Grand Elder of the Academy waved his hand and arrived at Divine Firmament Palace first through the Academy's teleportation formation to gather with the other sects and factions. For the 9 Firmament meet, representatives of the immortal domains would usually meet to head there together. Apart from the 3 immortal kingdoms and 4 immortal sects, there were also some aristocratic families of the immortal Tao, sect masters of Earth-grade sects, experts at the elder level and itinerant perfected immortal cultivators gathered in Divine Firmament Palace. Divine Firmament Palace itself had 1,000 perfected immortal followers. There were close to 10,000 perfected immortals gathered in Divine Firmament Palace this time round, and it was a massive commotion. Indeed, only immortal kings could suppress such a massive group. Apart from Immortal King Qingyang and the Grand Elder of the Academy, the other heaven-grade sects were only represented by ordinary immortal kings. Coupled with the 4 ordinary immortal kings sent by Divine Firmament Palace, there were 2 supreme immortal kings, 10 ordinary immortal kings, and close to 10,000 perfected immortal experts this time round. Coupled with the heaven immortals of the heaven ranking as well as the personal disciples of some perfected immortals and immortal kings, the Divine Firmament Palace group had already exceeded 10,000 people. When Immortal King Qingyang saw that the various factions had gathered, he led everyone onto the teleportation formation and disappeared from Divine Firmament Palace. Builder Tree Mountain Range. The Builder Tree was a divine tree of the heavenly world and was located in the center. It was connected to the 9 Firmament Immortal Domain, the Pure Land of Bliss and the Fiend Domain. It was precisely because of the existence of the Builder Tree that it could absorb the heaven and earth essence qi in the vast starry skies, making the heavenly world suitable for various living beings to cultivate and grow. For example, the Dragon Abyss star that Su Zimo first descended on was located in the starry skies outside the heavenly world. It did not have any immortal trees or spirit items. Therefore, the heaven and earth essence qi was thin and was not suitable for cultivating. The Builder Tree Mountain Range was a mountain range closest to the Builder Tree on the side of the 9 Firmament Immortal Domain. It was semicircular, as though it wanted to surround the Builder Tree. The 9 Firmament meet that was held once every 100,000 years was held on the Builder Tree Mountain Range. Recently, the Builder Tree Mountain Range had suddenly become lively. Cultivators from all over the 9 Firmament Immortal Domain were gathered here. Initially, there were all sorts of living beings and beasts in the mountain range. During this period of time, they had long hidden themselves and did not dare to appear. At the peak of the Builder Tree Mountain Range, on a teleportation formation, accompanied by a blinding light, many cultivators suddenly descended. There were more than 10,000 of them. Their leader had a terrifying aura and emitted a shuddering might. Immortal King Qingyang and the group of people from Divine Firmament Palace had arrived at the Builder Tree Mountain Range. Standing on the peak of the Builder Tree, Su Zimo looked in the direction of the Builder Tree instinctively. Although he was long prepared, he was still shocked. On the distant horizon, an ancient tree rose from the ground. Its thick trunk penetrated the clouds, as though it had already extended to the boundless starry skies outside. The ancient tree was like an ancient totem that pierced through the world. The gigantic leaves were dense and covered the skies. The ancient tree connected heaven and earth and stood deep underground. Countless roots connected to the heavenly world, and its trunk stood in the clouds above the firmaments, looking down on all living beings. Any living being would feel incomparably tiny in the face of the towering ancient tree. This scene was way too shocking. Even perfected immortal experts and supreme immortal kings like Immortal King Qingyang would feel insignificant in the face of the heavenly world's Builder Tree, let alone Su Zimo. This ancient tree had witnessed too much history. It had experienced countless flames of war and the sands of time. The masters of the heavenly world had changed time and again, but it was the only one that stood upright like an ancient totem. At least half of the tens of thousands of cultivators from Divine Firmament Palace this time round were seeing the Builder Tree for the first time. The cultivators were shocked and knelt down uncontrollably against the might of the Builder Tree, prostrating. This was also a mystical aspect of the Builder Tree. Almost all living beings would kneel down the first time they saw the Builder Tree. Only emperors could defend against the massive might of the Builder Tree that was consolidated from the sands of time. Chapter 2592. 2592 Targeting the Builder Tree. 2592 Targeting the Builder Tree. Among the 10,000 cultivators of Divine Firmament Palace, be it perfected immortals or heaven immortals, as long as they were seeing the Builder Tree for the first time, their minds would suffer a powerful blow. Their Tao hearts would be shocked and they could not help but kneel down. In the blink of an eye, more than half of the 10,000 cultivators of Divine Firmament Palace knelt. Among them, Immortal King Qingyang, the Grand Elder of the Academy, Sword Immortal Yu Hua, Zither Immortal Meng Yao and the others stood on the spot with calm expressions. They had seen the Builder Tree before. Although they could still sense the impact of the builder tree, they would not kneel. The feeling was more like a deterrence and awe for many living beings from the builder tree. The builder tree seemed to possess sentience. As long as it was the first time a living being was seeing it, they would have to express sufficient respect. Among the four great fairies, Chess Immortal Jun Yu, Book Immortal Yun Zhu and Zither Immortal Meng Yao had seen the builder tree before and were naturally not affected much. As for Mo Qing, she cultivated in the academy all year round. This was also the first time she had seen the builder tree. She was shocked and could not help but kneel down. Sword Immortal Yu Hua, Meng Yao and the others looked at the surrounding cultivators kneeling with faint smiles. Those cultivators were not kneeling to them. However, they still felt a strange sense of superiority. Right then, Sword Immortal Yu Hua, Meng Yao and the others noticed someone at almost the same time. Someone who should have knelt on the ground stood upright on the spot and glared at the builder tree fixedly in deep thought. Su Zimo. Why did he not kneel down? Sword Immortal Yu Hua frowned. The divine Firmament immortal domain was far away from the builder tree mountain range. There was no way Su Zimo could come into contact with the builder tree before he became an Earth Immortal. After he cultivated to the Earth Immortal realm, he joined Heaven and Earth Academy and had been cultivating in the academy. When did he come into contact with the builder tree? The fact that Su Zimo did not kneel down made Sword Immortal Yu Hua a little displeased. However, he did not think too much about it and merely instinctively thought that Su Zimo had seen the builder tree before. After all, even Immortal King experts would have to kneel and pay their respects when they first saw the builder tree, let alone Su Zimo who was only a grade 9 Heaven Immortal. Sword Immortal Yu Hua did not know that in reality, this was indeed Su Zimo's first time seeing the builder tree. The moment he saw the builder tree, the shock in his heart indeed made him feel like prostrating. However, immediately after, a strong reaction was triggered in his Green Lotus true body. If he had not suppressed it tightly, the bloodline phenomenon of the Green Lotus true body would have burst forth against the might of the builder tree. Su Zimo was secretly speechless. The creation Green Lotus that was known to be the only one in the world was indeed terrifying. Even against the ancient builder tree, he was unwilling to submit and even had the intention of challenging and suppressing the other party. Of course, given the current cultivation realm of the Green Lotus true body, there was no way he could fight against the builder tree. However, it was impossible for the builder tree to make the Green Lotus true body submit as well. However, the strange thing was that the builder tree did not react to the Green Lotus true body's resistance. According to the rumors, the builder tree had a spirit and should have some special reaction when it sensed the provocation of the Green Lotus true body. Zimo, when did you come to see the builder tree? Right then, Yun Zhu's voice sounded from behind. Ah! Su Zimo was slightly stunned but he reacted quickly and lied casually. I once entered this place by mistake and took a look from afar. Everyone says that the builder tree has a spirit. Is that true? Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat as he suddenly asked. Yun Zhu was a learned person and knew everything about history. Her understanding of the builder tree was definitely far superior to others. She would definitely be able to provide an answer regarding this matter. Yun Zhu nodded and said, of course it's true. The builder tree is indestructible and even emperors can't break it. The builder tree is awake most of the time. Although the heaven and earth essence chi around it is extremely rich, no living being can approach it, let alone cultivate in the vicinity. That was also one of Su Zimo's questions. Since the builder tree was the core of the heavenly world and was the key to absorbing heaven and earth essence chi, wouldn't it be much easier to cultivate in the vicinity of the builder tree? One's cultivation speed could increase by 100, 1,000 times or even more. Yun Zhu continued, however, the builder tree will sleep for a period of time every 100,000 years, ranging from a month to a few years. When the builder tree is asleep, living beings won't be attacked by it when they approach. Su Zimo was enlightened. In that case, the reason why the 9 firmament meet is held here every 100,000 years is because of this as well. Exactly. Yun Zhu nodded. For example, the perfected immortals on the perfected immortal ranking and arhats on the arhat ranking have the chance to cultivate beneath the builder tree. Even if they only get to cultivate for a month, it's equivalent to 10,000 years of effort. In that case, it could explain why the builder tree did not react to the provocation of the Green Lotus true body earlier on. It was because the builder tree was in a deep sleep right now. Su Zimo narrowed his eyes slightly and looked at the builder tree not far away in silence. A glint gradually flashed through his eyes. Although he could not brazenly head down to the builder tree to cultivate in front of everyone. However, with the green lotus true body, he could also slowly absorb and refine the life force energy in the body of the builder tree true body if he stood on the peak of the builder tree. He could steal the life force of the builder tree. That thought was truly audacious. Even Su Zimo was shocked when he realized what he was thinking about. However, he calmed down before long. This was a rare opportunity. He had just broken through to become a grade 9 heaven immortal, and it would take him at least 1,000 years to cultivate to the peak of a grade 9 heaven immortal. Now that the 9 firmament meet was held and everyone's attention was focused on the fight for the perfected immortal ranking and the Arhut ranking, he could secretly absorb and refine the builder tree. Even a trickle of life force from the builder tree would be enough for him to cultivate to the peak of a grade 9 heaven immortal. If he seized this opportunity, he might be able to touch the barrier of the perfected one realm. What are you thinking about? Why is your heart beating so quickly? Yunju glanced sideways at Su Zimo with a strange expression. And nothing. Su Zimo chuckled embarrassedly and changed the topic. There should be some candidates who are more or less confirmed to be the top 10 of the perfected immortal ranking and Arhut ranking at the 9 firmament meet this time round, right? Yunju could tell that Su Zimo was hiding something but did not ask further. She merely rolled her eyes at him. There are only 10 spots on the perfected immortal ranking and Arhut ranking respectively. Take the perfected immortal ranking for example. Typically, a supreme monster incarnate will appear in each of the 9 immortal domains and occupy a spot. Just like that, 9 of the 10 spots are gone. There will be one remaining spot to fight for. However, the perfected immortal ranking this time round is a little special. At that point, Yunju paused for a moment and looked at Su Zimo with a fake smile. Most of the perfected immortals of the Jade Firmament immortal domain have been killed by a certain somebody, so they should not be able to fight for the perfected immortal ranking. Chapter 2593. 2593 Hostile. 2593 Hostile. The certain somebody Yunju was referring to was naturally the martial Dao prime body. Su Zimo coughed gently and did not reply. Right then, a woman in the crowd walked over. Before she arrived, she called out softly, "Su Zimo." The woman did not have any makeup on and was extremely beautiful. Her long hair was tied into a bun and she wore a wide Taoist robe, but it could not conceal her graceful figure. A gigantic square chessboard hung on the woman's back. Although it looked a little strange, it formed a unique aura with the woman. Chess Immortal Junyu. People like the 4 great fairies were the center of attention no matter where they went. Now that Painting Immortal Mo Qing, Book Immortal Yunju, Chess Immortal Junyu and Su Zimo were gathered together, they attracted countless gazes. When Yunju saw Junyu walking over, she smiled and greeted her. Mo Qing nodded slightly to Junyu as well. Although the 3 of them did not have much of a relationship previously, they fought side by side at the Divine Firmament Immortal meet. That experience reduced the distance between the 3 of them and increased their trust. "How are your preparations, fellow Taoist?" Yunju said, "From what I know, the perfected immortal ranking competition this time round will be extremely intense. Apart from you, Qin Su of the Grand Firmament Immortal Domain, Lin Lei of the Green Firmament Immortal Domain and Zhuo Wuchen of the White Firmament Immortal Domain are not easy to deal with." Initially, Song Xian of the Jade Firmament Immortal Domain was not to be underestimated as well. However, he was killed by Desolate Marshal of the Fiend Domain. Junyu replied indifferently, "If it was 1,000 years ago, I'm confident that I would be ranked top 3 on the perfected immortal ranking. But now, I'm going to fight for the title of the Supreme Perfected Immortal with all my might." Amazing! Yunju praised sincerely. Her confidence and boldness were far superior to others. The reason why Junyu dared to say that was because 1,000 years ago, Immortal Queen Ling Long imparted to her the 9 Ling Long Zugzwangs and she had benefited immensely. Furthermore, during the Divine Firmament Immortal meet, Su Zimo resolved the 8th Ling Long Zugzwang. She witnessed the entire process personally and gained some insights, causing her combat strength to increase once more. Fellow Taoist Junyu, Were you calling for me earlier on? Su Zimo asked. Junyu nodded and removed the astral chessboard from her back. Come, the 9 firmament meet has yet to begin. Let's play a few rounds. Su Zimo was a little helpless. It was no wonder why Junyu was the chess immortal. Before the 9 firmament meet, most perfected immortals were conserving their energy. However, this person even wanted to play chess against him. The 9 firmament meet had yet to begin and there were many people in the vicinity. It was not appropriate for Su Zimo to absorb and refine the builder tree secretly. Since he had nothing on right now, he agreed to it. He played chess with Junyu while paying attention to the movements of the other immortal domains and the pure land of bliss. Apart from the divine firmament immortal domain, cultivators of the verdant firmament and elixir firmament immortal domains had already arrived. There were also more than 10,000 cultivators from the 2 immortal domains. As Yang Ruoxu had said, the Jade Firmament and Elixir Firmament immortal domains also had supreme immortal kings leading their groups and there were more than 10 ordinary immortal kings. Among the 2 immortal domains, 2 women were rather eye-catching. Both of them were at the perfected 1 realm and were peerless beauties, comparable to the 4 great fairies. Yunju said, Fairy Jialan of the Verdant Firmament Immortal Domain and Fairy Ling Huang of the Elixir Firmament Immortal Domain are both popular candidates for the perfected immortal ranking. Junyu said as she played chess with Su Zimo, Jialan's methods are not weak. I've fought her before and it's not a problem for her to be ranked on the perfected immortal ranking. However, it's hard to say for Ling Huang. Pausing for a moment, Junyu looked at Yunju. If you're willing to fight for the perfected immortal ranking with all your might, you'll definitely be above Ling Huang. We'll see. Yunju smiled gently. She was not interested in being on the perfected immortal ranking. Immediately after, the green firmament immortal domain arrived. Su Zimo looked up and searched the crowd of the green firmament immortal domain. Junyu stopped playing and looked over as well. Before long, Su Zimo caught sight of Lin Lei and Lin Luo. Not far away from the 2 of them stood a dignified and beautiful middle-aged woman. The moment Su Zimo caught sight of the beautiful middle-aged woman, the latter seemed to have sensed something and looked over as well. Their gazes met in midair. Instantly, a thought flashed through Su Zimo's mind. This must be Fairy Ling Long of Tianhuang Mainland who is also Immortal Queen Ling Long of the Green Firmament Immortal Domain and Battle Kingdom right now. He had never seen the true appearance of Immortal Queen Ling Long before. Back when he ascended, he hid in the Hell Suppression tripod and did not have the chance to witness it either. However, the moment he saw the dignified beauty, Su Zimo was certain that this was Immortal Queen Ling Long. At the same time, Immortal Queen Ling Long recognized Su Zimo. Initially, Immortal Queen Ling Long exuded a pressure unique to immortal kings. However, her gaze suddenly softened when she saw Su Zimo. Just as Su Zimo was about to get up, the voice of Immortal Queen Ling Long sounded in his mind. There's no need for us to acknowledge one another now. Don't be in a hurry to return to the sect after the 9 firmament meet is over. At that time, I'll come and look for you. Ling Long Immortal King seemed to be wary and did not acknowledge Su Zimo or interact much. She retracted her gaze after sending a voice transmission with her spirit consciousness. On the other hand, Lin Luo was delighted when she saw Su Zimo. She raised her arm and beckoned over passionately. Su Zimo nodded with a smile. When Lin Lei saw that, he looked a little displeased. He pulled Lin Luo and walked a few steps faster, squeezing into the crowd and disappearing. Thereafter, the Vantage Firmament Immortal Domain and Purple Firmament Immortal Domain arrived. Yunju casually mentioned the popular candidates of these 2 immortal domains for the perfected immortal ranking. In the Purple Firmament Immortal Domain, Su Zimo even caught sight of someone familiar. Prince Ing Tian. At that moment, Su Zimo and the 3 great fairies were gathered together, and were extremely striking on the side of the Divine Firmament Immortal Domain. Ing Tian noticed Su Zimo quickly and his gaze turned cold. He raised his head slightly towards Su Zimo with a provocative gaze. Su Zimo was unmoved and continued playing chess, as though he had not seen anything. After that was the White Firmament Immortal Domain. Yunju said, among the perfected immortals of the White Firmament Immortal Domain, Zhuo Wuchen should be the strongest. His sword Dao is even above sword immortal Yu Hua. Apart from him, Yun Mubai of the White Firmament Immortal Domain's Yun country is also one of the popular candidates this time round. When he heard that, Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat. Yun country of the White Firmament Immortal Domain. He did not know if there was any connection between the Yun country and King Yun Yu. Similarly, there was someone he was familiar with in the White Firmament Immortal Domain. Princess Lang Qianqian, a Grade 9 Heaven Immortal. Although she was not as provocative as Prince Ying Tian, she exuded a fighting spirit as well when she caught sight of Su Zimo. Su Zimo had no doubt that Lang Qianqian would definitely challenge him if she had the chance. Back in the Pure Jade Manual, the combat strength of Prince Ying Tian and Princess Lang Qianqian were restricted. They were indignant that they were suppressed by Su Zimo. In fact, the two of them were too embarrassed to mention such disgraces to outsiders. Now that they saw Su Zimo at the 9 Firmament meet, the two of them would naturally want to get payback. As time passed by, 7 of the 9 immortal domains arrived. A moment later, the Grand Firmament Immortal Domain cultivators arrived. Suddenly, a warning flashed in Su Zimo's mind. There was a strong hostility from the Grand Firmament Immortal Domain that even triggered his spirit perception. Chapter 2594. 2594 Terrifying Monk. 2594 Terrifying Monk. Su Zimo looked up expressionlessly. In the crowd of the Grand Firmament Immortal Domain, a black-robed man stood at the front of the many perfected immortals behind the Immortal King experts. He was tall and mighty, emitting a violent and savage aura. The black-robed man glared at Su Zimo with a burning gaze. Suddenly, he grinned and did not conceal the hostility in his eyes. This person looked unfamiliar and was at the Perfected One realm. Su Zimo had never seen this person before in his memories. Logically speaking, he should not have any grudges with the perfected immortals of the other immortal domains. Who is that? Su Zimo asked. Yun Zhu seemed to have sensed the black-robed man's hostility towards Su Zimo as well. That's Qin Su. His strength is unfathomable and he's a popular candidate for the Supreme Perfected Immortal this time round. Do you remember I mentioned something to you about the Grand Pure Jade Manual in the 3 Pure Ones Jade Manual? Su Zimo nodded. You said that the Grand Pure Jade Manual once landed in the hands of a Heaven Immortal in the Grand Firmament Immortal Domain. At that point, Su Zimo seemed to have understood something as he murmured, "Could it be?" Yun Zhu said, "The Grand Pure Jade Manual fell into Qin Su's hands. However, that was tens of thousands of years ago. At that time, he was only a Heaven Immortal." Junyu said, "The reason why Qin Su was able to cultivate with such a terrifying speed to become a Paradise Void Perfected Immortal in tens of thousands of years was because of the Grand Pure Jade Manual. Of course, he's a prince to begin with and has a noble status with sufficient cultivation resources. Qin Su was even a prince." Su Zimo frowned slightly. It was no wonder why this person was so domineering. Even though he knew that Su Zimo was from Heaven and Earth Academy, he did not conceal the hostility in his heart. Su Zimo had no doubt that if he was just an itinerant cultivator, this Prince Qin Su would even dare to snatch his Pure Jade Manual in broad daylight in front of everyone. In the upper world, without the backing of a powerful faction, it was extremely difficult for one to survive, let alone cultivate. A long time after the Grand Firmament Immortal Domain arrived, the Jade Firmament Immortal Domain arrived. Unlike the other 8 immortal domains, although the Jade Firmament Immortal Domain also had Supreme Immortal Kings and Ordinary Immortal Kings leading the group this time round, there were clearly much less perfected immortals. The entire group added up to less than 10,000 people. Furthermore, it was clear that there was a lack of top-tier perfected immortal experts in the Jade Firmament Immortal Domain. Most of them were at the Convergence or Celestial Being realm. It's really way too tragic for the Jade Firmament Immortal Domain this time round. There's definitely no hope of them contending for the Perfected Immortal ranking. Notwithstanding the Perfected Immortal ranking, it's already extremely fortunate if any Perfected Immortal of the Jade Firmament Immortal Domain can be ranked in the top 100 this time round. After all, in that battle back then, Desolate Marshal of the Fiend Domain was way too domineering and violent. He killed thousands of Perfected Immortals and the Masters of the 5 Immortal Cities single-handedly, dealing a severe impact to the Perfected Immortal Circle of the Jade Firmament Immortal Domain. From the looks of it, They might not be able to recover without 100,000 years at the very least. Song Xian and the others brought it upon themselves by kidnapping a Dao child of Desolate Marshal. Who knew that Desolate Marshal would be so domineering that he would disregard everything and barge into the Jade Firmament Immortal Domain alone to start a massacre in Langfeng City? The moment the Jade Firmament Immortal Domain descended, the crowd discussed. The immortal kings of the Jade Firmament Immortal Domain had ugly expressions. They surveyed their surroundings and harumphed coldly, emitting a powerful might to stifle the discussions around them. After all the 9 immortal domains of the 9 Firmament Immortal Domain arrived, tens of thousands of monks from the 4 continents of the Pure Land of Bliss arrived at the same time. Did the Pure Land of Bliss produce any incredible monks this time round? Su Zimo asked. Yun Zhu said, the most noteworthy person from the Pure Land of Bliss is an Arhat named Shi. Most of the other Arhat experts are from the 4 continents. However, Shi is from Mount Meru of the Pure Land of Bliss. It's said that he has already obtained the supreme true inheritance of Buddhism. If nothing goes wrong, Shi should be this year's Supreme Arhat. Following Yun Zhu's direction, Su Zimo's gaze landed on a monk in the crowd. The monk was young and held one palm upright in front of him with a string of prayer beads hanging on it. He followed behind a heavenly king of the Buddhist monasteries with a lowered head. From afar, Shi was no different from the other monks and was one of the types that were difficult to discover in a crowd. However, the moment Su Zimo's gaze landed on that person, Shi suddenly raised his head. A bedazzling divine light burst forth from his eyes as he looked towards Su Zimo. What keen senses! Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat. What was even stranger was that after the monks of the Pure Land of Bliss descended, countless gazes lingered on Shi. Shi was unmoved by all of them. When Su Zimo looked at him, he sensed something and turned back. Just as Su Zimo was puzzled, an unfamiliar voice sounded in Su Zimo's ears. It was warm, moderate and extremely pleasant, like Sanskrit of the Buddhist monasteries, causing one to unconsciously feel reverence. Patron, you have an affinity with the Buddhist monasteries and the aura of Buddhism around you is extremely pure. I hope that I will have the chance to discuss Buddhism with you. Su Zimo looked at Shi who was among the monks in the distance. Shi smiled benevolently and nodded in his direction. What a terrifying monk! Shi gaze was warm and his tone seemed extremely polite. However, Su Zimo felt his scalp tingle and a chill run down his spine. He finally realized why Shi noticed him. That was because Shi could sense the aura of Buddhism from him with just a single gaze and could tell that he was different. Although Shi phrased it nicely, in reality, he wanted to probe Su Zimo's secrets. Although this person might not have guessed that he had cultivated the taboo mystic classic of the Buddhist monasteries, the Prajna Nirvana Sutra, Su Zimo was clearly targeted by him. This monk who had the potential to become the supreme Arhat indeed possessed phenomenal abilities. Before the 9 Firmament meet began, Su Zimo was already targeted by many cultivators, including Heaven Immortals and Perfected Immortals. They were all hostile. Su Zimo had a calm expression. Given his current cultivation realm, he could sweep through all other experts of the Heaven Immortal realm. It did not matter if they were princes or princesses, everyone would be suppressed by him. If perfected immortal experts like Qin Su and Shi were to come knocking, Su Zimo would naturally not be able to defeat them. However, it was not as though he had no way of dealing with them. The martial Dao prime body was still in seclusion in Avicii, and was at an important juncture of deducing the martial Dao. As long as the martial Dao prime body came out of seclusion, he could resolve all the dangers he was facing. The 9 Firmament Immortal Domain and Pure Land of Bliss factions were all present. Together, there were more than 100,000 cultivators gathered on the Builder Tree Mountain range with a massive might. Most of those cultivators were experts at the perfected immortal realm. On the side of the 9 Firmament Immortal Domain, there were 13 Supreme Immortal Kings and more than 100 ordinary Immortal Kings. For the Pure Land of Bliss, 10 Supreme Heavenly Kings and dozens of ordinary Heavenly Kings arrived as well. This was an unprecedented sight. It was clear how much the 9 Firmament Immortal Domain and Pure Land of Bliss valued this 9 Firmament meet. The reason why there were so many Immortal King experts holding down the fort was to ensure that the 9 Firmament meet could proceed smoothly without any sudden variables appearing. As the various factions gathered, the 9 Firmament meet officially began. Chapter 2595. 2595 Taking it out on the Prince. 2595 Taking it out on the Prince. An immortal king from the 9 Firmament Immortal domain arrived in midair. A heavenly king from the pure land of bliss appeared as well, and the two of them stood side by side. The Tao title of the immortal king from the 9 Firmament Immortal domain was Pu Xian, and the Tao title for the heavenly king of the pure land of bliss was Hui Wan. Although the two experts were only at the minor grotto heaven realm and were ordinary immortal kings, they had already hosted many 9 Firmament meets and were experienced. The two of them first exchanged pleasantries and introduced the rules and precautions of the 9 Firmament meet. Su Zimo was not interested and merely wanted the perfected immortal ranking and Arhut ranking to begin as soon as possible so that he could secretly absorb and refine the life force of the builder tree. After a while, immortal King Pu Xian coughed gently and said, "The heaven immortals who can take part in the 9 Firmament meet are all paragons of the various immortal domains. Before the 2 ranking list competition begins, heaven immortals can also spar and interact with one another." This was also the custom of every 9 Firmament meet. The main event of the 9 Firmament meet was the fight for the perfected immortal ranking and Arhut ranking. Prior to this, the sparring between heaven immortals could only be considered as an appetizer to build excitement for the 2 ranking lists later on. There were no specific rules for the spar between heaven immortals. Every heaven immortal could stand out and challenge any opponents. Of course, the other party could also reject the challenge. If this was in private, it would naturally not matter if anyone rejected the challenges. However, this was the 9 Firmament meet where experts of both domains were gathered. If anyone rejected a challenge, it would have a huge impact on his reputation and even that of his sect. Furthermore, those who could take part in the 9 Firmament meet were all somebodies on the heaven rankings of the various immortal domains. None of them could afford to lose face like this. The moment immortal King Pu Xian said that, more than 10 cultivators from the other 8 immortal domains stood out. 3 of them were even the rank 1s of the heaven ranking of the Verdant Firmament Immortal domain, Vantage Firmament Immortal domain and Jade Firmament Immortal domain. I heard that rank 1 of the heaven ranking in the Divine Firmament Immortal domain, Su Zimo, is extremely powerful. Since this is a rare gathering, I'd like to spar with him. A grade 9 heaven immortal from the Green Firmament Immortal domain said in a deep voice. Rank 1 of the Green Firmament Immortal domain's heaven ranking was Lin Luo of the Battle Kingdom. The combat strength of this grade 9 heaven immortal was not weak either. He was rank 3 of the Green Firmament Immortal domain's heaven ranking this time round. I want to challenge the Divine Firmament Immortal domain's Su Zimo as well. A grade 9 heaven immortal of the Elixir Firmament Immortal domain stood out and shouted. What a coincidence! Rank 1 of the Verdant Firmament Immortal domain's heaven ranking smiled. The person I want to challenge is also the Divine Firmament Su Zimo's. It was not only the other 8 immortal domains. Even a few monks from the Pure Land of Bliss stood out. Zen Master Hui Wen smiled gently and teased, "Young friends, are you all going to challenge Su Zimo of the Divine Firmament Immortal domain?"
Yes. Me too.
The few cultivators who had just stood out nodded one after another. Although the others did not say anything, they acknowledged it silently. Initially, Zen Master Hui Wen was merely asking casually. To think that cultivators of the various immortal domains and even monks of the Pure Land of Bliss wanted to challenge the rank 1 of the Divine Firmament Immortal domain's heaven ranking. Instantly, Su Zimo became the focus of the 9 Firmament meet. Those cultivators did not know Su Zimo at all. However, the rumors of Su Zimo and the 4 great fairies at the Divine Firmament Immortal meet spread through the heavenly world, attracting the hostility of many cultivators.
Fu.
Sword Immortal Zhuo Wuchen of the White Firmament Immortal domain smirked with a mocking expression. The tallest tree in the forest will be destroyed by the wind. If a young man is too showy, he will naturally be taught a lesson by others. Lin Lei said in a low voice, "Sister, don't be fooled by Su Zimo's refined appearance. He's a big flirt. Look, there's even rumors of him and the 4 great fairies. Don't get too close to him." "Brother, you believe such rumors?" Lin Luo rolled her eyes at Lin Lei helplessly. Fairy Jia Lan of the Verdant Firmament Immortal domain looked at Su Zimo curiously and said softly, "So, he's Su Zimo. He looks ordinary and there's nothing special about him. I wonder why the 4 great fairies would get involved with him given their stature." Another perfected immortal said, "No matter what, There are so many Heaven Immortal experts challenging Su Zimo, the rank ones of the Heaven rankings in the other Immortal domains included. It'll probably be difficult for that lad to tide through this. Unlike the excited discussions of the cultivators of the other Immortal domains and the Pure Land of Bliss, the Divine Firmament Immortal domain was extremely quiet. Even Sword Immortal Yu Hua, Perfected Immortal Wu Feng, Meng Yao and the others who had grudges with Su Zimo had calm expressions and did not make any sarcastic remarks. It was not that they did not want to, but they had witnessed Su Zimo's methods at the Divine Firmament Immortal meet personally. They knew very well that the so-called paragons of the various Immortal domains who had just stood out were no match for Su Zimo. Even if the group of them attacked together, they might not be able to threaten Su Zimo. Sword Immortal Yu Hua and the others did not bear much hope and naturally reacted indifferently. Right then, on the side of the Purple Firmament Immortal domain, a Grade 9 Heaven Immortal stood up slowly and walked out of the crowd, exuding a unique might as he said slowly, "All of you, retreat. Don't fight with me." It was the rank 1 of the Purple Firmament Immortal domain's Heaven ranking, Prince Ing Tian. Ing Tian wants to challenge Su Zimo as well. This is going to be interesting. I reckon that Ing Tian wants to suppress Su Zimo's limelight as well. Given his Emperor bloodline, Su Zimo will definitely lose. Another commotion broke out in the crowd. None of the cultivators knew that the reason why Ing Tian wanted to challenge Su Zimo was because he had suffered a huge loss in Su Zimo's hands. The two of them had a feud of a severed arm. Furthermore, back in the secret ground of the Pure Magnificence Heaven, he did not gain any advantage against Su Zimo. Even the Pure Jade manual was taken away by Su Zimo. That was an unacceptable humiliation for Ing Tian. As the son of an emperor, he had never encountered such a huge setback up till this point of his cultivation. When Sword Immortal Yu Hua saw Prince Ing Tian appear, his expression changed and he was slightly interested. Ing Tian was different from the rank 1s of the Heaven rankings in the other Immortal domains. If there was anyone of the same cultivation realm who could suppress Su Zimo, Ing Tian should be the one with the highest chance. The cultivators who had just stood out to challenge Su Zimo retreated in fear when they saw Ing Tian appear. Even the rank 1s of the 3 Immortal domains did not persist. Ing Tian was a prince after all with a noble status. Everyone had to give him some face and there was no need to offend him just because of Su Zimo. Against the challenge of a group of Heaven Immortal experts, Su Zimo had a calm expression and was in deep thought. He did not take the so-called paragons before him seriously at all. He did not even care about Prince Ing Tian. His thoughts had always been on absorbing and refining the Builder Tree. I have to resolve this matter as soon as possible and let the competition for the 2 ranking lists begin as soon as possible. Su Zimo lamented internally. Only when the Perfected Immortal ranking and Arhut ranking began and attracted the attention of most cultivators could he seize the opportunity to secretly absorb and refine the life force of the Builder Tree. Initially, Su Zimo was pondering how troublesome it would be to deal with the challenges of so many cultivators. Now that Prince Ing Tian came knocking, it was exactly what he wanted. He could take it out on the prince and intimidate everyone else. Chapter 2596. 2596 Domineering Suppression. 2596 Domineering Suppression. Su Zimo of the Divine Firmament Immortal Domain, do you dare to come out and accept the challenge? Say something. Could he be afraid? Is this the level of the Divine Firmament Immortal Domain's Heaven ranking? If he's so useless, you guys should replace him as soon as possible. A series of shouts sounded from the crowd and many cultivators hollered loudly, worried that Su Zimo would be afraid of fighting Ing Tian. On the peak of the Builder Tree mountain range, venues and platforms for cultivators to spar were set up. Ing Tian had already stood on them. Su Zimo smiled indifferently and rose. Stepping through the air, he arrived at the Sword Discourse Arena before long. On the side of the Grand Firmament Immortal Domain, an imperceptible figure appeared behind the number 1 Perfected Immortal, Qin Su. At that moment he said in a low voice, "Young master, if Ing Tian kills Su Zimo, the Pure Jade manual will probably fall into the hands of Ing Tian as well. It won't be easy to get it back. There's no hurry. Let the 2 of them exhaust themselves first." Qin Su replied indifferently, "Someone who possesses the Pure Jade manual and can defeat Yun Ting won't die so easily." On the sword discourse arena, Su Zimo and Ying Tian stood facing one another. Immortal King Pu Xian said, "If the two of you are ready, let's begin." On the side of the divine firmament immortal domain, Immortal King Qingyang seemed to have thought of something and suddenly said loudly, "The point of sparring is not for you guys to fight to the death. It's best for the two of you to restrain yourselves." Ying Tian said indifferently, "Senior Qingyang, you're right. However, we're all top-tier heaven immortals and our strengths are similar. Once we fight, it'll be difficult for us to know our limits. Whether he can survive depends on his fate." Although Ying Tian said it politely, in reality, he rejected the suggestion of Immortal King Qingyang. "Idiot!" Immortal King Qingyang cursed internally. "Do you think I was reminding you earlier on? I was reminding Su Zimo to spare your life." When Immortal King Qingyang saw Ying Tian's reaction, he smiled faintly and did not say anything more. On the sword discourse arena, Ying Tian glared at Su Zimo with a murderous aura and said coldly, "Su Zimo, I've waited for this day for too long." When he recalled the humiliation he experienced in the secret ground of the pure magnificence heaven, the killing intent in Ying Tian's heart had already accumulated to its peak. He had to retrieve everything he lost back then today. Su Zimo did not waste his breath on him. He only wanted to resolve this matter as soon as possible. Before Ying Tian could finish his sentence, Su Zimo moved and transformed into a golden streak of light. Instantly, he crossed the entire sword discourse arena and arrived before Ying Tian. It was way too fast. Even the cultivators watching below the stage were shocked. Some heaven immortals who wanted to stand out and challenge Su Zimo earlier on had grim expressions and were secretly alarmed. The speed of that movement technique alone had already surpassed everyone's imagination. If they were in Ying Tian's position, it would be difficult for them to react and they might be suppressed by Su Zimo within a short period of time. "How dare you!" Ying Tian's pupils constricted and he reacted extremely quickly. With a shout, he chose to release his bloodline phenomenon without hesitation. Even a lion uses its full strength to fight a rabbit. Ying Tian had witnessed Su Zimo's melee combat methods before and knew how powerful he was. He did not dare to be careless. However, the moment his bloodline phenomenon appeared, before it was condensed, Su Zimo suddenly opened his mouth and let out a deafening roar. It was like a dragon's roar and a phoenix's cry mixed with the explosion of thunder. It penetrated metal and cracked rocks in a deafening manner. Dragon Roar Secret Skill. Ying Tian released his sound domain secret skill hurriedly as well, wanting to defend. However, Su Zimo had already released his innate divine power, the six-tusk divine strength, a step earlier in midair while he was charging over. The power of his body and essence spirit increased exponentially, and even the power of his sound domain secret skill rose to its peak. Back when Su Zimo was a grade 8 heaven immortal, even Yun Ting could not defend against the impact of the Dragon Roar secret skill in melee combat. Now that Su Zimo had cultivated to become a grade 9 heaven immortal, the Dragon Roar secret skill caused a huge impact on Ying Tian. Ying Tian's eyes widened and he shuddered. Before his bloodline phenomenon was formed, it was dispersed by a single roar of the Dragon Roar secret skill. If not for the protection of the incomplete bloodline phenomenon earlier on, his body might have been severely injured. At that distance, many divine powers and secret skills could not be released in time. Only instantaneous secret skills could cause damage to the opponent. Ying Tian released his visual technique and was prepared to counterattack. At the same time, a blinding beam of light burst forth from Su Zimo's right eye and destroyed Ying Tian's visual technique instantly. The remaining beam of light entered Ying Tian's eye socket. Ah! Ying Tian shrieked tragically and one of his eyes went blind on the spot. If not for the protection of the defensive Dharmic treasure in his consciousness, the visual technique might have even injured his essence spirit. Su Zimo seized the opportunity to advance. He extended both hands and flicked out 10 sharp fingernails that were like sabers and swords, gripping Ying Tian's shoulders instantly. At the same time, he stretched his body and thrust his knees forward, charging forth like a divine steed.
You!
Ying Tian was enraged. Back in the secret ground of pure magnificence heaven, Su Zimo used this same move to injure him severely in melee combat. To think that Su Zimo would do the same today. Furthermore, he was even more ferocious and savage than before. Ing Tian lost the initiative against Su Zimo's sound domain's secret skill and visual technique and could not defend against Su Zimo's attacks at all. Crack! His chest caved in deeply with the jarring sound of bones cracking.
Xing.
Fresh blood spewed in midair. Under countless gazes, Su Zimo tore off Ing Tian's arms with his tendons and bones. It was a shocking sight. It was not over yet. Before Ing Tian's figure was sent flying, Su Zimo reached out once more and slapped the top of Ing Tian's head.
Show mercy. Stop.
Instantly, two voices sounded. Most of the cultivators below the platform were in shock and had yet to recover. Immortal King Pu Xian and Zen Master Hui Wen, who were at the side, reacted right away. They shouted and released the might of Immortal Kings to suppress Su Zimo's figure while saving Ing Tian. Cough, cough. Although Ing Tian was saved, he looked dispirited and coughed out large mouthfuls of blood. The broken bones in his chest pierced his heart like a short spear. His blood qi deteriorated rapidly and he no longer had the strength to fight.
Wah!
The cultivators were shocked and their faces were filled with disbelief. In less than 3 breaths, the battle was over. There was only a single person left on the Sword Discourse arena. It was rank 1 of the Divine Firmament Immortal Domain's Heaven ranking, Su Zimo of Heaven and Earth Academy. Although Sword Immortal Yu Hua, Meng Yao and the others knew that Su Zimo's methods were powerful, they had not expected Ing Tian to lose so quickly and not even last 3 breaths. What happened earlier stunned many Heaven Immortals present. It was not only because of Su Zimo's series of powerful methods earlier on. More than that, it was because the killing intent that Su Zimo had just displayed was shuddering. Everyone could clearly see that if the 2 Immortal Kings had not saved him, Prince Ing Tian would have been a dead man. Su Zimo even dared to kill the son of an emperor. Chapter 2597. 2597 next. 2597 next. Who's next? Standing on the Sword Discourse arena, Su Zimo surveyed his surroundings with a burning gaze and a shuddering aura as he asked slowly. The Heaven Immortals below did not dare to meet his gaze and averted it. The rank 1s of the 3 immortal domains who stood out earlier on fell silent as well with wary expressions and did not say anything. Initially, Princess Lang Qianqian wanted to find an opportunity to fight Su Zimo once more. But now, she put that thought aside. Even Ing Tian nearly died. Who could guarantee that he could survive the battle? Even if she managed to survive in the same manner as Ing Tian, she would have lost all face and the losses outweighed the gains. Su Zimo was very satisfied with the reactions of the crowd below. This was the effect he wanted when he attacked so ferociously earlier on. Otherwise, it would be too troublesome if so many cultivators came to challenge him one after another. Furthermore, before he attacked, he had already expected that someone would save Ing Tian. Ing Tian's identity was special after all. Immortal King Pu Xian and Zen Master Hui Wen were hosting the 9 Firmament meet and there was no way they would let the prince die in front of them. Qin Su of the Grand Firmament Immortal Domain glanced sideways.
Shadow go. Understood.
An imperceptible figure behind Qin Su hesitated for a moment before agreeing to it. He had no name. Everything he had was given to him by Qin Su. Even his life did not belong to him and he was prepared to sacrifice himself for Qin Su at any moment. He was merely Qin Su's shadow. When Su Zimo saw that no one was going to fight, he was about to leave when a figure entered the Sword Discourse arena. Many cultivators were invigorated. Su Zimo frowned slightly. There's still someone who dares to come? The person's face was covered and his body swayed slightly, as though he was one with the void around the Sword Discourse arena. His entire body seemed hazy and blurry. After Shadow went on stage, he attacked Su Zimo without saying anything. Suddenly, he vanished. When he reappeared, he was already beside Su Zimo and stabbed towards the back of the latter's head.
Xing.
The sword qi tore through the void and let out a sharp sound. Su Zimo's expression was calm and unmoved. In fact, he did not even attempt to dodge. Before the sword qi even landed on Su Zimo, it dissipated rapidly and vanished. Shadow's attack earlier on was merely a feint. Even that seemingly corporeal sword qi was merely an illusion.
Xing.
Shadow appeared once more. This time round, he arrived beside Su Zimo and slashed through the air with a murderous intent. Su Zimo did not even look at him and was still motionless. The figure dissipated once more and vanished. Shadow cultivated many Dharmic Daos, including the Tao of concealment, assassination, and illusion. The current scene was the result of those Dharmic Daos combined together. Although Su Zimo had never dabbled in those Dharmic Daos before, he relied on his spirit perception and was not disturbed at all. Shadow's 2 attacks earlier on did not make him feel threatened. Even after a few probing attempts, Shadow did not truly attack.
Swoosh.
Shadow appeared once more.
Die.
This time round, Shadow released an Essence Spirit secret skill at Su Zimo while shifting between illusion and reality. What was initially a feint turned into a true assassination attempt instantly. Su Zimo's expression turned cold. Shadow was not here to spar at all. In a Dharmic art fight between cultivators, he released his Essence Spirit secret skill right away. It was clear he was out to kill. If he was not wrong, this person was ordered by Qin Su to kill him and snatch the Pure Jade manual.
Humph.
Su Zimo was a decisive person to begin with. Once he realized that, there was no way he would hold back. He ignored Shadow's Essence Spirit secret skill and conjured a Dharmic seal, smashing it towards the latter's head.
Hum.
At the same time, Su Zimo chanted Sanskrit. Instantly, the Dharmic seal in his hand seemed to have transformed into a thick, majestic and unattainable mountain peak that crushed down with a shocking might.
Oh!
In the direction of the pure land of bliss, the eyes of some heavenly kings of the Buddhist monasteries lit up when they saw the mountain peak. The glint in Shi Wunyan's eyes intensified as he murmured, "To think that it's the secret skill of the Buddhist monasteries, the great Mount Meru seal. This lad indeed has the inheritance of the Buddhist monasteries." The great Mount Meru seal. It was a one-sided defeat. The great Mount Meru seal was heavy, steady and simple. It was the most effective against the illusory Dharmic Tao techniques Shadow utilized. Back at the divine Firmament Immortal meet, even Yun Ting could not dispel that Dharmic seal right away and was disadvantaged. It was even worse for Shadow. Creak. Shadow's sword was shattered by the great Mount Meru seal. Poof. Although more than half of the power was dissipated, the great Mount Meru seal still caused Shadow to spit out blood and he was sent flying. Su Zimo's hand seals changed once more. Before Shadow's figure landed, a massive white tiger appeared to the west of him. It roared and opened its bloody mouth, biting Shadow. That bite and roar of the white tiger had already killed Shadow. It was one of Su Zimo's strongest killing techniques, White Tiger Corpse Collection. Qin Su's Shadow died on the spot and his essence spirit was destroyed. Amitba. Zen Master Hui Wen chanted a Buddhist proclamation softly with a look of pity. This time round, neither Immortal King Pu Xian nor he stood in to save Shadow. After all, Shadow was just a servant under Qin Su's lead. His status was worlds apart from the prince and was not worthy of the two of them making a move. Beneath the sword discourse arena, the crowd was in an uproar. Su Zimo's counterattack was so ferocious that Qin Su's Shadow was killed on the spot after 2 Dharmic arts. At the same time, many cultivators felt relieved. Thankfully, they did not head to the sword discourse arena rashly earlier on. Otherwise, the corpse up there right now might have been one of them. Qin Su's expression darkened and his eyes shone with a cold glint. Interesting. Suddenly, Qin Su smiled and clapped his hands, saying meaningfully, "Su Zimo, you're very good. The road ahead is long. I'm sure we'll get to interact again." Everyone could hear the threat in Qin Su's words. Qin Su was a prince and had the potential of contending for the supreme perfected immortal title. He possessed the inheritance of the Grand Pure Jade Manual and was definitely bent on getting his hands on the Pure Jade Manual. Su Zimo ignored Qin Su's threat and merely pointed at Shadow's corpse, saying coldly, "Take him away." Next. Instantly, the discussions in the surrounding quietened down. Su Zimo defeated 2 Grade 9 Heaven Immortals in succession, and even Prince Ing Tian nearly died. Who would dare to head up and die? Earlier on, a group of Heaven Immortals were eager to challenge Su Zimo. But now when Su Zimo stood on the sword discourse arena and challenged the Heaven Immortal experts of the 9 Firmament Immortal Domain and Pure Land of Bliss, none of them dared to accept the challenge.
Foo-foo.
Su Zimo chuckled and leaped down from the sword discourse arena, returning to the divine Firmament Immortal domain. The Grand Elder of the Academy was all smiles and looked satisfied. In the 2 battles earlier on, not only did Su Zimo make a supreme reputation for himself and shock the crowd, the reputation of Heaven and Earth Academy benefited indirectly as well. After this, there were some Heaven Immortals who went on to the arena to spar. However, everything seemed much blander compared to Su Zimo's battles earlier on. The spar between the Heaven Immortals did not cause much of a stir and ended quickly. Next was the main event of the 9 Firmament meet, the fight for the perfected Immortal ranking and Arhut ranking. You're tuning in to the Xueqi's Martial Arts Saga YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.